unresolved issues related to the National Health Insurance Act. He met with the leadership of BUSA yesterday to discuss the NHI. The scheme, whose aim is to establish a state fund to cover the medical costs of all South Africans, has faced some strong opposition from BUSA as well as some members of the GNU. The presidency has described as constructive the meeting which the health minister and his deputy, as well as senior officials of the department, attended. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya.
Government remains committed to engaging with all stakeholders in good faith on the process of healthcare reform and to finding workable solutions that will advance quality and affordable healthcare for all.
Metro Rail says its teams are still gathering information from the scene at which a train left the rail tracks near the Mbekweni in Paarl in the Boland of the Western Cape. The company sent rescue crews to the scene yesterday. Metro Rail says that its team's information is expected to indicate the cause of the incident. And to end, U.S. rapper and producer Sean Diddy Combs has been denied bail after pleading not guilty to charges of racketeering and sex trafficking in New York. He'll be held in federal custody until his trial. Prosecutors allege that Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women to fulfill his sexual desires. The 54-year-old music mogul is accused of creating a criminal enterprise to facilitate his exploitation of women. If convicted, he could face life behind bars. Combs' lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, says his client is confident of being cleared.
He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation that changes anyone's mind about anything.
Recapping the top story this hour, the ANC will hold a second leg of its memorial service for the former Cabinet Minister Pravin Gordhan in Durban this afternoon. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We start in Cape Town with a couple of crash scenes along the N1 highway. One causing quite a big backlog. It's N1 inbound just by the Old Oak Road exit in Belleville. So that's pushing traffic deep back into the Brackenfell area from Okavango Road through to Old Oak Road. That's heavy. And a crash on the N1 out of town just before the R44 Klapmuts exit. If you're heading out towards Paarl, just watch there's some slowing traffic. We are keeping an eye on Quebecer and the high tide along the N2. The N2 inbound from Blue Water Bay at this stage seems to be open. And rain, wet weather conditions continue across much of the greater Durban area and inland parts of KZN. Please drive carefully on wet and slippery roads. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. There's plenty to look forward to. Action from last night that saw Themba Zwane shining. Mamelodi Sundowns claiming a 2-0 derby win over SuperSport United. And we have Springbok news as Salman Murat leads a changed Springbok side. Details around 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Wednesday, the 18th of September 2024 has dawned. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. The local and international news, current affairs, insights and opinions you need to lead the conversation today, carefully curated and packaged for you. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, here to deliver your morning brief. Here's how it's looking over the next 3 hours. Coming up, with the Department of Employment and Labour is conducting a 4-day inspection blitz across the country, particularly in the restaurant sector, as a result of ongoing concerns about exploitation and violation of laws, including immigration as well as labour laws. The initiative started yesterday and will involve, we are told, some 2,000 labour inspectors and will focus on on enforcing compliance with the various labor laws, including the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and the National Minimum Wage. So at about 10 to 7, or just before that, thereabouts, I'll be in conversation with Egi Moilwa, who is the Inspector General at the Department of Employment and Labor. You will have heard, of course, about the first phase of that blitz, focused blitz on the restaurant sector taking place in Pretoria. We'll get an update on how sustainable that is and what the focus is and how do they maintain the momentum and ensure that there is compliance not only in that sector but in other sectors as well. So that conversation coming up within this hour. In the next hour, in the second hour of the show, we'll be focusing on learner dropout rates in schools. The figures are staggering because we are told that the matric class of 2024 is just 40% smaller, is 40% smaller than, what it was when these pupils started school in grade 1 in 2013. So if you were tracking them from 2013, you will find that of those that started in 2013, only 40% have made it to matric this year. That's 730,000 compared to the 1.2 million pupils who started school in grade 1 in 2013. We regurgitate these numbers every year, we lament every year, but what is being done to fix that particular aspect of our education situation? And Elijah Mhlanga will speak to me at about 7:10. And of course, an interesting story, and I'm hoping you can also weigh in on this. The convicted rapist and murderer, Thabo Bester, you will have seen him on TV yesterday making an impassioned plea for access to a laptop. This was during the appearance in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday. He says he needs the laptop to prepare for his deportation case that's being heard in the Bloemfontein High Court. And he says he has lived without access to any real-time information for the past 18 months. So he was citing a number of examples of how it's done in countries like the US, Finland, Denmark and Belgium in terms of access to the internet at correctional facilities. And we're just wondering if indeed he's raising something valid. Is there something for us as a society to pause and reflect on? You can weigh in on that. Of course, I'll be taking your calls and voice notes. And of course, we have all of your regulars. The news with Modupi Makhalemele every half hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan will be watching your sport throughout the morning. And then Dauleng Lichela has your economics, business and market news covered. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. And as I said, I'll be taking your calls on all of these stories. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. And your WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. The Wednesday edition of The Morning Brief starts now.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider. Weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Ask me how I know that 50% of car claims are pre-approved instantly. That's because I was one of them.
Yeah, they got my car back on the road with the first repair.
I submitted my claim on the ANG app. I didn't even have to call.
Auto & General is proud to be recognised as South Africa's best car insurer by Forbes and The Star for short-term insurance. Isn't it time you switch to award-winning cover? Visit autogen.co.za. Auto & General. Never not there. ANG is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter.
This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be.
Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM. This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to celebrate the rich tapestry of our nation's diverse cultures. From the vibrant beats of our traditional music to the flavors of our unique cuisines, every culture tells a story of strength, unity, and identity. We honor the heroes and heroines who laid down their lives for our freedom, reminding us that our shared heritage is what makes us strong. Together as one, we celebrate who we are because our culture is our identity. This Heritage Month, let's celebrate every culture, every story, and every voice. Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
It's good to have you joining us for the morning brief on this Wednesday at 6:15. Let's check in with Mudupi Makhalemele now for the daily news diary. Mudupi, ke uthotse sana. No nahana hore ka bale ya grootman ya hao. Ke uthotse sana.
Well, as Tuxen, very good morning. It has been a while, man. Yeah. I hope you're well.
Very good. How's it looking on the diary? What do you have?
Great. There's a couple of stories we're looking forward to. Obviously, the big one, undeniably, Pravin Gordhan. Today, we're going to have the second leg of his memorial service. We've, of course, had one yesterday in Joburg. Today's one will be in Durban, which will, of course, will be where he'll be buried tomorrow. Now, Gordhan, as you know, died in a Joburg hospital last week. He was 75. And after he had a short battle with cancer. So that is one story we'll be looking at with beady eyes.
What time does it start?
It should start at around 4 o'clock, the same as yesterday in the afternoon, Moving on, another one is the Meyiwa court case. That, of course, has been going on for quite some time. What's happening today is that two ballistic experts are expected to be called to the witness stand today when the trial resumes in Pretoria. 5 men are on trial for murdering the Bafana Bafana captain back in 2014. Now, these two experts, they're the ones who confirmed the findings of the ballistics analyst, Chris Mangena, who linked one of the accused to the killing of the goalkeeper back then on that fateful day. Another story we'll be looking at is the former chief financial officer of the Sekhukhune district municipality in Limpopo and 4 co-accused. They'll be appearing in a specialized commercial crimes court in Polokwane today. Charles Malema allegedly connived with the co-accused in making a 5.4 million rand payment to people who did not render services to the municipality. And of course, Tulas, the first special council meeting in honor of the late councillor Moshe Mphahlele is expected to take place in the Konibapela Council Chamber in Joburg this morning. Now, the EFF Joburg Deputy Secretary died during a community protest in Alexandra Township, north of Joburg last month. He was shot while attempting to mediate between the police and homeless people who were trying to forcibly occupy government flats in that area. That's just a snippet of the stories that we'll be looking at today.
Thank you so much for that. Mudupi Makhalemele will have your news updates every half hour throughout the morning here on the Morning Brief. And of course, extensive and comprehensive reporting by the SABC News team throughout the day on all of our platforms, throughout the day on those and other stories that Mudupi has highlighted for you in the Daily News Diary.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Standard Bank Group, the biggest bank in Africa by assets, in partnership with SOAS, will host the 4th Annual Climate Summit on October 1. The summit will host insightful discussions with various industry experts in charting Africa's course to net zero. The annual summit is one of Standard Bank's sustainability initiatives dedicated to driving growth on the African continent. Tune in on our SAFM Facebook page and be a part of the conversation in shaping the future of Africa's energy transition. Brought to you by Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's get you ready for the day then and give you a sense of how the weather is looking. Let's start with 2 warnings. One says it's a yellow level 2 warning for wind and waves from Saldanha Bay to Plettenberg Bay in the afternoon and continuing until Thursday. The other, we have a fire danger warning, and that is to say that extremely high fire danger conditions are expected in places in the Limpopo Valley and Western Bushveld, as well as the central parts of the Northern Cape and the Beaufort West and Prince Albert municipalities of the Western Cape. For the rest of the weather then, Pretoria is partly cloudy, becoming fine, 15 to 28. The expected UVB sunburn index in Pretoria is high. Johannesburg is cloudy, becoming fine, minimum 14 and a maximum of 26. Mbombela is partly cloudy, 15 to 33. Polokwane is fine, 17 to 30. Mahikeng is fine, 10 to 28. Bloemfontein is fine with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 21. Kimberley is fine with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 25. Cape Town will see morning fog, otherwise cloudy at times, with a chance of light rain from the afternoon. The wind in Cape Town is light to moderate northerly to northwesterly, becoming fresh southerly to southwesterly from the afternoon, but southeasterly in the evening, with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 16. The expected UVB sunburn index in Cape Town is moderate. George will see morning fog, otherwise it's cloudy at times with scattered light showers and rain from the afternoon. The wind is moderate westerly to southwesterly, reaching strong to gale from the late afternoon while moderating by late evening. It's a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 19 in George. Gqeberha will be partly cloudy with isolated light showers and rain from late afternoon. The wind is moderate to fresh southwesterly, becoming westerly in the evening, reaching strong overnight. The minimum temperature there is 9 and a maximum of 20. East London is partly cloudy with isolated light showers and rain from late afternoon, with the wind being moderate westerly, becoming southwesterly, freshening in the evening. It's a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 21. Durban will be cloudy in the early morning with isolated showers and thunder showers, becoming partly cloudy. The wind in Durban is moderate to fresh easterly to northeasterly, becoming moderate to fresh southerly to southwesterly by mid-morning. It's a minimum of 18 and a maximum of 28. The expected UVB sunburn index in Durban is very high. And lastly, Pietermaritzburg will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 25.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
All right, let's pick up on this story now. Russia says it has repelled 5 new attempts by Ukrainian forces to smash through its border in the western region of Kursk. This brings the total number of reported attacks on the border to 26 in just the past 6 days. On the 6th of August, Ukraine launched the biggest foreign attack on Russia since World War II, bursting through the border in the western region with thousands of troops supported by drones and heavy weaponry. Russia retaliated on the 10th of September with a major counter-offensive against the Ukrainian forces, further escalating the war that has been ongoing since 2022. Let's bring into the conversation now Roland Henwood, who is political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. So it seems to be shifting sands to me, Roland. The 1 minute we're focusing on the Eastern Front with the offensive by Russia, and the next minute focus has to shift to the Western Front in the region of Kursk. But what does this escalation mean for the Russia-Ukrainian war?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Interestingly, I think it just indicates the dynamics of the conflict and the maneuvers of the two armies. It does not really signify anything new. If one wants to compare, Ukraine has indicated that Russia has launched 40 new, let's call them attacks, in parts of the war front where they're trying to get to the city of Pokrovsk, which is an important logistical hub for Ukraine. So what it indicates to us is that there's a lot of fighting going on across the region, and the two armies are focusing on different dimensions. In parts of Ukraine, the Ukrainian army is focused on defending its positions, holding ground. In the Russian side, where the Ukrainian forces cross the border, there's maneuvers going on. Ukraine is definitely cementing its foothold and are under counterattacks, but the counterattacks don't seem to be making much headway. There are indications that a small number of villages or settlements may be under Russian control again. But in general, we see the Ukrainian position holding. And there are so many indications coming from, literally from the ground, that it's difficult to often keep track of everything that is happening.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
There are also reports of new incursions from Ukraine into the Belgorod region. There's no response from Russia on that, but I think that's the indication that there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of different elements that are becoming part of this conflict, both sides trying to get some kind of advantage over the other and increase the pressure on the other.
A good 3 to 4 weeks since the first Ukrainian incursion in the region of Kursk, and the analysis and criticism and critique that followed about the strategic advantage or otherwise of doing that. Are we any clearer as to what it was aimed to achieve and what it has in fact achieved?
There's some clarity in the sense that Ukraine definitely didn't launch this on a whim and just cross the border with the intention of going in and getting out again. This is definitely part of a longer-term approach, a longer-term strategy, and there is some speculation, for instance, saying that it's trying to increase pressure on Russia, showing the vulnerability of Russia in terms of defending its own territory, not only focusing on, or not having the luxury to only focus on attacking Ukrainian territory. The other explanation is trying to draw Russian forces away from the Eastern Front, alleviating the pressure on Ukraine's defending forces. That hasn't really happened, although there are some indications that there may actually be some troop movements, but one would have to see how that plays out. And the other one is to say that this is going to be territory that will be exchanged for Ukrainian territory in future. I think if one looks at what is happening on the ground, it is clear that Russia has difficulty in mobilizing the kind of forces that they need to push Ukraine out of the Russian region that they're controlling. And it's probably not a priority for Russia at this stage. That's the indication. But they will have to attend to it some way. And I think this links to the new call from President Putin to increase troop numbers by an additional 180,000 troops. So there's a new recruitment drive. There's a lot of speculation. Will Russia require another drive of conscription? And then also, what will the training regime be? How long will it be before these troops are going to be ready? So there's a lot of issues that are developing in the process that may have an impact in the short or medium term or maybe longer term. And then, of course, the last issue here is what is NATO going to do in terms of Ukraine's request for more support and different support.
Yeah. Could it be, Roland, that what you just outlined in the last few minutes is exactly part of what Ukraine is trying to achieve? Make the war a lived reality for Russians in Russian territory, bring it to their doorstep, as opposed to, having it play out in largely in Ukrainian territory, and the only interaction they have with it is casualties and fatalities of the serving people. But when you bring it to their doorstep, it takes on another dynamic in as far as Russian politics itself is concerned.
It may be a result of what is happening. It's unclear if that is the main intent. If it is, then probably the Kursk region is a bit far from everything mainstream. But what it has done is changed the reporting in Russia. It's no longer just what government's telling people. There are now reports coming from people who are in the area, bloggers, etc. So it has changed the mindset and the living experience. Of course, there's another context to the bringing the war closer, and that is that if you move your troops far enough forward and create a secure environment, you create a closer range for yourself in terms of defending against some of the main forms of attacks that's causing most damage in Russia, especially using the so-called glide bombs, because you're pushing the envelope that Russian Air Force need to fly a bit back. And if you link that to the request for different missile systems and the unfettered use of long-range missiles, that may change the balance of power in terms of what Russia can use and how it can use its weaponry to attack inside of Ukraine.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. Always insightful. Roland Henwood, who is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Just a check-in on the war in Russia and Ukraine that we do from time to time as part of our international news update. And that brings us to 6:30. Let's check in with Modupi Makhalemele with the latest news headlines.
Thank you very much, Thulas, and a very good morning. In your headlines, Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says his department does not intend to rubber stamp the final version of the white paper on citizenship, immigration, and refugee protection. The ANC will hold a second leg of its memorial service for the late former cabinet minister Pravin Gordhan in Durban this afternoon. And the Lebanese group Hezbollah says it holds Israel fully responsible for the deaths of at least 9 people and the wounding of nearly 3,000 others after the simultaneous explosion of communication pages yesterday. And those are your headlines. A full news update in your news at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy delays on Joburg's southern bypass. This is the N12 eastbound coming out of Alberton towards Germiston. It's a crash blocking 2 lanes of the highway around Fort Trekker Road. Very heavy queues back as far as the R59 Reading interchange. Big delays there if you're on your way towards the N3 connections. And if you're coming in from the Vaal, you might want to just elect to stay on the R59 and go straight through to South Rand Road and reroute through to Lisa Park rather than just getting through Reading and joining the N12 eastbound. It's a heavy backlog. Bit of traffic coming through Centurion this morning, just through Brockfontein towards Old Joburg Road. Looks like there may be an issue around that exit, just causing an unusual backlog. Durban, clear skies this morning. Rain overnight last night, so roads remain wet and slippery, and there's a few puddles and a bit of surface water, but clear skies this morning, so that's a nice condition. And Cape Town, heavy backlogs going in on the N1 highway. There's a crash scene just by Old Oak Road in the Belleville area. The traffic backlog is severe. It's back past Okavango Road, so back at the Kraaifontein area, and the R300 jam-packing from Bottler Road going north to try and squeeze into that N1 inbound queue. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning, Zai.
Good morning.
Yeah, are you good?
Good.
Fantastic. I see the man they call Mshishi is at it again at Mamelodi Sundowns.
Let's just say Sundowns, they didn't just open the door yesterday for the Premier League, man. With this guy, Mshishi, they literally kicked the door down.
Bafanaba style.
Bafanaba style. And Themba Zwane, they're coming off the bench to fire That 2-0 win over SuperSport United, and this is how they did it. After a goalless first half, Zwane came off the bench with a stunning assist to Ikram Reyners, who netted the opener. Reyners, on a scoring streak, grabbed his second goal in 2 games. Just 4 minutes later, Lucas Ribeiro doubling the lead, taking advantage of a defensive error from SuperSport. Now, despite their efforts, United struggled to threaten Sundowns, who comfortably secured the victory and the bragging rights in the capital city derby. Let's hear from Sundowns coach Mangoba Ngiti.
I think we were not ruthless enough first half, which left a scare, because it looked like maybe it's going to be a long day. But second half, I think we improved. Our creative zone became stronger because we saw the space in front of the 3 centre backs behind the 2 midfielders, which is why we decided to go with a lot of creative players all at once.
Action elsewhere. Bayern Munich had a 9-2 demolition of Dynamo Zagreb at the start of their Champions League opener. Aston Villa made a stylish return with a 3-0 win at Swiss side Young Boys in their first game in the tournament for 41 years. Juventus, they beat the visitors PSV Eindhoven 3-1. Liverpool recovered from a goal down, beating AC Milan 3-1 in their Champions League opener. And Manchester United thrashed League One, which is the third tier of English football side Barnsley, 7-0 at Old Trafford to reach the 4th round of the Carabao Cup. Rugby news, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus has made 10 changes to the team that started against the All Blacks last time, and that's for the penultimate Castle Lager Rugby Championship fixture against Argentina in Santiago. That's on Saturday night. Salman Murat will resume the captaincy role that he assumed for the game against Australia in Perth. Ibn Etzebeth will be providing lock cover from the bench as Erasmus continues with the process of strengthening his depth in both playing and leadership personnel. Cricket now. Next month's Women's T20 World Cup will offer a record total of 139.9 million rand in prize money. The winners of the tournament will receive 41 million rand, more than double that was awarded to Australia for winning the previous edition of the tournament. The Women's T20 World Cup is scheduled from the 3rd to the 20th of October, was moved to the United Arab Emirates from Bangladesh, which has been rocked by political turmoil in recent months. And finally, Proteas captain Themba Bavuma has been ruled out of the first ODI of the 3-match series against Afghanistan due to illness, with Aiden Markram set to lead the team in Sharjah this afternoon. The 350-over internationals in the UAE will be the first time the Proteas meet Afghanistan in a bilateral series. The countries last met in the T20 World Cup semi-final in June, when the Proteas won by 5 wickets before going on to lose in the final against India. We'll have more sport on the morning brief. I'm Zaikan.
Put a spring in your step with the Espresso Morning Show.
That's right. Join us for fresh ideas, blooming trends, and vibrant tunes that are sure to brighten your day.
Discover the best ways to enjoy the season's beauty, from garden tips to spring fashion.
Come on now. Plus, get inspired with lively interviews and my favorite, the latest in entertainment.
Basically, start your mornings right with us. That's weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. only on S3.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
The Business Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Ndauleng Lechela now, who joins us. Ndauleng, good morning to you. So, we watch the U.S. economy quite closely, and especially in this week. One of the areas we are watching is U.S. retail sales. Why?
Morning, Tula. So U.S. retail sales just gives us an idea on how the U.S. economy is performing, considering that it is a consumption-led kind of economy. So it just gives us insight on whether, consumers are spending their money or whether they do have money and whether they can actually spend the money or have money within this high interest rate environment. And today's print, or rather yesterday's print, just showing that the consumer in the world's largest economy remains somewhat resilient in the face of high interest rates. In August, sales ticked up 0.1%. This might be tepid, but it is better than the 0.2% decline analysts had expected. Sales have grown, but at a slower pace. In July, sales ticked up 1.1%. August retail sales figures show that consumers are still spending, this being driven by lower energy costs, but you can see the impact of the slowdown in the job market just rearing its head as sales ease. Zooming in on the print, retailers in the health and personal care saw the biggest gains, with sales increasing 1.7%, but this growth was partially offset by a 1.2% decline in sales at petrol stations, which dragged down the overall total. Now, seven of the major categories fell in August, but at least two of them fell because of price declines, not necessarily lower volumes. Analysts in the meantime say the trend over the past several months within the retail sector shows that consumption continues to drive the economy's expansion and that the U.S. does not appear to be on the brink of a recession.
In news back home and in company news, I see that Outsurance is looking to get something out of international markets. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. Now, besides South Africa, Outsurance has operations in Australia and Ireland, and that's where it's seeing growth potential. Now, its Australian insurance company, UE, reported significant growth for the year ending June, with gross written premiums increasing 28.2% to 21 billion rand. Despite the expansion, UE's market share remains relatively modest in key segments, holding 5% of the motor insurance market and 3% of the home insurance market. Now, Outsurance says it sees the potential to grow and gain more market share there. Regarding Outsurance's Irish expansion launched in May, the group says it will adopt a more cautious and measured growth approach. This strategy is due to the lack of claims history in the Irish market. Outsurance's CEO, Martinez Visser, said the group is now gradually scaling up that business, increasing sales incrementally. But as a startup, the group is proceeding with caution since it lacks historical claims data to inform its pricing. Now, this announcement comes alongside Outsurance's results, where earnings ticked up 19%. That's as it benefited from tailwinds provided by ongoing premium inflation, higher investment income from improving financial markets, as well as robust new business growth.
Lastly, then, Ndauleng, the market news. Give us a sense of how it played out in Asia, the U.S. markets, as well as the JSE closing.
So trade has been quite choppy over the past 2 days to last. Not much action as traders take a wait-and-see approach. In Wall Street, markets pretty flat ahead of the Fed's rates decision. The S&P 500 hit a record high yesterday, but retraced those gains, closing slightly above the flat line, up 0.03%. Moving over to Asia, the same kind of action playing out there. Markets looking for direction and trade remaining really flat. There's uncertainty about the size of the interest rate reduction from the Fed, and this has been weighing on sentiment and comes after a report unexpectedly showed a modest increase in U.S. retail sales. Back at home, the JSE, however, just powering through, ending on an upbeat note. The all-share closed 1.2% higher, fueled by gains from the financials up 1.3%. The rand also strengthening, breaking under the 1760 level. It's currently trading at 17.59 to the dollar.
All right. Thank you for that, Ndauling Lechela. There will have another update just after 7:30 with all the news in the economy as well as business and the markets.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Let's move on to this story now. The KwaZulu-Natal Department of Public Works and Infrastructure says it has established an interim rapid response team to combat financial irregularity, fraud and corruption, and to monitor problematic and prolonged infrastructure projects in the province. Last month, during the tabling of the 2024-2025 budget vote, the province's Public Works MEC, Martin Meyer, made a commitment to significantly narrow the turnaround time for the delivery of crucial infrastructure projects, reduce wasteful expenditure and combat fraud and corruption within the province. So we are told that the rapid response team will scrutinize reasons and causes of disruptions and delays of over 38 infrastructure projects which have been red flagged as problematic, which are valued at over 100 million rand, among other issues. For more on that, then I'm joined by Dr. Vishan Govender, the acting head of the Department of Public Works in KwaZulu-Natal. Good morning to you, Dr. Govender. Let's start with what makes this task team to be a rapid response task team. How is it composed? What's the skill set for the mandate at hand?
Thank you, Thulasizwe, and greetings to yourself and the listeners. The task team is made up of a variety of individuals, focusing on individuals with specialities in engineering, project management, financial management, monitoring and evaluation, strategic management, procurement, and lastly but not least, dealing with issues surrounding financial mismanagement, nepotism, alleged unethical conduct, and matters that require people with a sense of knowledge of how you get into these type of situations and turn the corner. So that's the composition of the task team, and the task team will be headed by the head of infrastructure and myself as the acting HOD, and we will report accordingly on a weekly basis to each other and on a quarterly basis to the executive authority and the community out there.
So in terms of what exactly you'll be doing as part of this task team, you'll be monitoring, you say, but with what influence to unlock where there's a gridlock?
Thank you. So we're looking at, as you said, and you quite correctly captured same as well, Thulasizwe, we're looking at problematic projects with regards to why these projects have got poor performance with regards to contractors not performing, non-payment of contractors as well, and also issues pertaining to poor contract management both on the side of the department and on the side of the contractors. Also major stoppages, Thulasizwe, and that's obviously causing great concern for the department, whereby projects are being stopped, like the Menzi High School, which has had 6 stoppages to date, and currently today we have the NCOP visiting same to understand what has the department done in order to unblock same. So we're also looking at issues around how then do we then as a task team focus on these challenges and mitigate them with clear, concise plans, and that's why we termed it rapid, because we want things to happen within a short period of time, and we want whatever actions we take needs to have speed, accuracy, and accountability. The mandate of the team definitely comes with the mandate of all applicable law and statute that's granted upon myself as the acting head of department, and hence, with us not waiting for an exco or manco, we're able to meet weekly and thus ensure that any challenges, we mitigate it within the 24-hour period, and we ensure that projects are unblocked.
Lastly then, Dr. Govender, there's 38 infrastructure projects that have been flagged as problematic. On average, how long have they been delayed? And talk to them directly then, and tell us what's your commitment regarding these 38 problematic infrastructure projects.
Thank you, Thulasizwe, and that's a valid question. The Executive Authority and myself have noted with serious concern, Thulasizwe, that the time left in these projects is anything between 100 and 250%. The actual progress, Thulasizwe, is sitting between 30 and 50%. If I have to unpack that in layman's terms, Thulasizwe, it means that we've started some of these projects as early as 2021, and we're sitting in 2024 with 30 to 50%. That, Thulasizwe, is unacceptable and unexplainable in simplest terms. My commitment to the Executive Authority and the people of KZN under the stewardship of the Honourable MEC, Honourable Martin Meyer, is to make sure that these projects move with speed and move from the 30 to 50% mark to 90 to 100%. The bar has been set high. It's non-negotiable. There cannot be any issues that will prevent us to deliver, because all these projects have to be planned properly, and once they're planned, we have to work that plan. And all of these projects have approved funding. All of these projects have detailed project implementation plan. I think the issue at hand here, there's been a bit of catnapping on our side, and that definitely now with the task team and the rapid response team will come to an end, because we adopted a zero tolerance approach to completion of infrastructure projects within the province of KZN.
I appreciate that, Kenda, Dr. Vishan Govender, talking about catnapping on your side. No more catnapping. We will hold you to your undertakings there. That's Dr. Vishan Govender, who is the acting head of department in the KwaZulu-Natal Public Works Department, talking about a rapid response task team that has been set up to respond to delays in projects and get to the bottom of why projects are delayed and try and get them over the line within reasonable time.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still got a really big delay on Joburg Southern Bypass. It's a big collision scene blocking a couple of lanes just by Ford Trekker Road on the N12E, so it's really heavily snarled up. Back into Reading Interchange, the R59 is now queuing up through the interchange to get into the N12 eastbound, and a lot of other motorists stuck on the R59 avoiding it, routing up towards South Rand Road into Talisa Park. Big queues on the N12 and R24 routes into Galulis coming in from Ekurhuleni side this morning, and a breakdown on the M1 South around Old Joburg Road. That's why you're stuck in a queue from as far back as John Foster Drive. That run down through Brockfontein into Centurions, quite heavy. 2 work zones on the R21 to deal with this morning. One before the Clayville off-ramp and another after the Clayville off-ramp down by Engine. And no traffic lights on the Trickard Road, Solomon Mshlungu route at Feldpost Street. That's just in front of the Waterkloof Air Force Base. That was horrible yesterday. It's building up again this morning without the traffic lights. That section of Trickard and Solomon Mshlungu. And keep in mind, that route is the host route for the airshow event this coming weekend. That section of the road will be closed on Saturday and Sunday, so the faulty traffic lights shouldn't affect you then, but they certainly are again this morning. Durban, clear skies, that's good news. A little bit of sort of surface water and puddling around though, so don't sort of take carte blanche because the skies are clear. There's still some dangers around Durban. More rain in the forecast as well, right for the rest of the week, so keep practicing road safety. Into Cape Town we go with the N1 inbound, heavy to the Durban Road exit at Belleville. An earlier crash up by Old Oak Road has been cleared, but it's left a really big backlog of traffic in from Kraaifontein. The R300 to get in, queuing as far back as the back beyond Van Riebeeck Road. And again, we're seeing Marine Drive queuing heavily. This will queue pretty much most of the day today. Marine Drive coming into Woodbridge Island at Loxton Road in Milnerton. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Africa from Within follows the journey of our anchor presenters who travel to various locations in order to delve into the inner workings and untold stories of the unsung heroes. At its core, Africa from Within is all about grassroots storytelling and the showcasing of the conservation contributions of ordinary people to Africa. It aims to engage and entertain viewers, educate and promote conservation, and inspire viewers to value our natural heritage. Don't miss Africa from Within on SABC2 every Friday at 7 p.m.
Kick
Kickstart your journey to success in 2025 with the Durban University of Technology. DUT offers programs in the faculties of Accounting and Informatics, Applied Sciences, Arts and Design, Engineering and the Built Environment, Health Sciences and Management Sciences, open for applications for 2025. Applications close on 30th September 2024, but dates may vary. Visit dut.ac.za for a full list of available programs and entry requirements. Apply now through the Central Applications Office by visiting cao.ac.za.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3, Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, it is 7 minutes to 7. Let's get to this story now. A raid by the Department of Employment and Labour at 2 restaurants in Pretoria has revealed shocking details about how staff are allegedly owed more than 1.3 million rand in wages due to underpayment. On Sunday night, the Labour Department, alongside officials from the Department of Home Affairs, raided the Barbell and Ocean Basket restaurants in Menlyn after a viral social media post from a former employee at the Barbell restaurant. In it, the former employee details working conditions that suggest that the restaurant is in contravention of several labor laws. She alleges that workers at the restaurant have no contracts. While the Department of Employment and Labour said it is now conducting an extensive 4-day inspection blitz across the restaurant sector across the country to deal with these issues. I'm joined now by Egi Moyelwa, who is the Inspector General at the Department of Labour, Employment and Labour. Good morning to you. So I suppose an obvious question is, what has brought this on, this intensive focus and an extensive blitz across the restaurant industry? Was it triggered by that video that had to do with the Barbell restaurant? And if so, why wait until there's a viral video before you act?
Yes, indeed, it was triggered by that video. And remember, in our strategy for the department, when we plan for inspections, we plan for both reactive and proactive inspections. So we do anticipate that the instances will have to directly respond to the outcry of people out there, employees in particular, or workers, and this indeed was sparked by that video. And as a follow-through, and just to intensify in our strategies in this particular sector, we decided to go on a full-blown 4-day intensive blitz inspection to do precisely that. However, we have always been proactive in our approach. Just this year in the first quarter, we did a blitz on construction, and we also did a blitz on agricultural sector. So we do have sectors that we deem as problematic and high risk.
What is the intensive focus blitz yielded thus far?
Thus far, although it's too early to tell, we anticipate the trends are not going to differ much from what we've picked up in both Barbell and Ocean Basket. Remember, the restaurants fall under the hospitality sector. So there's a particular minimum payment that is within the bargaining council of the hospitality sector. And we find that by and large, most of these type of workplaces do not necessarily even have things as basic as a contract of employment, and people don't even get access to pay slips and things like that. And when we come to issues of registration with unemployment insurance fund, you find that by and large, these workplaces do not register with the unemployment insurance fund. If they do register, they do not declare their workers as they should per law on a monthly basis. The same goes for compensation of injuries and diseases act. You find that they're either not registered or they're not even declaring their annual income as they should be doing. And when it comes to the occupational health and safety issues, atrocities that take place there are dumbfounding. no proper PPE for workers, and no surveillance of health, no risk assessment and things like that. So we know that our work is cut out for us. There's just simply no culture of compliance in sectors of this nature, and that is why we dub them as problematic.
What about non-compliance with immigration laws? And I ask that question in the context in which there can be no debating just how much of a policy focus and a political focus it has become in the country. Seeing the numbers that you were reporting from the Barbel and Ocean Basket raids in Pretoria, I would say a lot of people who observed that industry would say you did not even touch the tip of the iceberg in as far as non-compliance with immigration laws is concerned.
Absolutely, 100% spot on. Industries like this have got a lot of foreign nationals that are employed. We all know that. And most of them are undocumented. And that is why when we do raids of this nature, we do integrated police inspections. Like Home Affairs will be part of that. We've got a dual responsibility as far as the enforcement of immigration is concerned. We've got the part that we do. Home Affairs has got a responsibility to looking whether the foreign nationals that are employed there have got the valid documents or not. And if not, then the Home Affairs does what Home Affairs is supposed to do. On our part as a department, where we come in is to make sure that employment standards and employment conditions are applicable in both, whether you're a foreign national or you're a local person. Our laws do not discriminate.
I want to squeeze in this question very quickly. You've got a big problem. The labor inspectors, you simply don't have enough.
We simply don't have enough, but it's a pity we don't have enough time, though. And I think that is a debatable matter because resources will never be enough, and we do have ILO standards that would recommend at least what enough could be, looking at dynamics of our country. So currently we're sitting at just over 2,000 inspectors that specialize in various disciplines. Is it possible for them to be everywhere and at any time? No. That is why we also depend on workers themselves to be able to safeguard their own interests. Yes.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. Egi Moyelwa, who is the Inspector General at the Department of Employment and Labour. Yeah, so what do you think? Share with us your views about the activity, the intensive focus on the restaurant industry, focusing on employment and labour laws, as well as enforcing immigration. So it's a multidisciplinary approach that these departments, labour as well as Home Affairs, are undertaking. That brings us to 7 a.m. Let's check in with Mudupi Mahalemele with the latest from the news.
Thank you very much, Thulasizwe Simelane. The top stories this hour: Home Affairs refuses to approve the white paper on immigration, and another memorial service to be held for Gordhan. A very good morning to you. Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says his department does not intend to rubber stamp the final version of the White Paper on Citizenship, Immigration and Refugee Protection. The aim of the White Paper is to repeal the Refugees Act and to overhaul the immigration system. Clamping down on immigration transgressors is at the core of the legislative process. Schreiber told Parliament's Home Affairs Portfolio Committee yesterday that the White Paper would be tailored to align with the objectives of the Government of National Unity.
We have the opportunity to supplement some of this work through making sure that the legal changes actually align with what the President and the administration have put on the table. I think one thing that's very important, Chair, to caution against is we should not have a misalignment between what the presidency and this department is doing in terms of modernizing Home Affairs and reframing our systems.
The ANC will hold a second leg of its memorial service for the late former Cabinet Minister Pravin Gordhan in Durban this afternoon. This follows the first memorial in Joburg yesterday, which included a private viewing of Gordhan's body at his home in Pretoria. Gordon's body arrived in Durban last night. He died in a Joburg hospital last Friday at the age of 75 following a battle with cancer. President Ramaphosa has accorded him a special official Category 2 funeral, which will be held at the Inkosi Albert Luthuli Convention Center in Durban tomorrow. ANC SG Fikile Mbalula and struggle stalwart Mac Maharaj will be the main speakers at today's ceremony. Dries Liebenberg has more.
Former Minister Pravin Gordhan's memorial service is to be held in Kendra Hall in Durban at 5 o'clock this afternoon. It's a stone's throw away from Sastry College, where Gordhan matriculated in 1967. It was here in Durban and the then Natal where Gordhan cut his political teeth from 1971. He was involved in community activism and underground ANC work in the 1970s and 1980s. He and Mac Maharaj were both involved in Operation Vula, aimed at infiltrating ANC leaders back into South Africa from 1988 onwards. I am Dries Liebenberg for SABC News in Durban.
Meanwhile, the ANC's KZN chairperson, Siboniso Duma, led a party delegation that received Gordhan's body at King Shaka Airport. Duma has described Gordhan as a selfless activist.
He went to exile for the ANC. He believed firmly on the issue of a selfless character, ensuring that people are not going to be free unless they participate. But he chose that I'm just going to fight for this gigantic movement. He can join the ANC, later join Thulasizwe. I'm sure you also know about the issue of Operation Vula, which is the key feature of what he stood for in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
In the Western Cape, Metro Rail says it has received reports that 25 passengers have been hospitalized following the derailment of a train in Paarl in Limpopo. The train was traveling from Cape Town to Wellington when the incident occurred last night. Metro Rail says PRASA and Transnet are investigating the incident. Train services have been suspended at Dal Josaphat station until further notice. No fatalities have been reported. And the Lebanese group Hezbollah says it holds Israel fully responsible for the deaths of at least 9 people and the wounding of nearly 3,000 others after the simultaneous explosion of communication pages yesterday. The Iranian-backed group has vowed to retaliate. Israel has not commented on the explosions, but it has been engaged in months of hostilities with Hezbollah. Lebanese hospitals have been struggling to treat the wounded. Lebanon's health minister, Firaz Abiat.
It's a major escalation when everybody was hoping that things are moving towards some kind of a ceasefire. This is clearly a move in the wrong direction. We in the health sector have been quite worried since day one. And that's why we have been holding these drills in preparation for the health sector in Lebanon, preparing for mass casualties that unfortunately we experience today.
The top story this hour, Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says his department does not intend to rubber stamp the final version of the White Paper on Citizenship, Immigration and Refugee Protection. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy traffic around the Reading interchange this morning. There's a big crash in on the N12 eastbound at Ford Trekker Road, so it's very heavy on the N12 moving through Alberton towards Germiston territory, and then you've got some very heavy traffic arriving into that up the R59 from Swartkoppies Road. You're either stuck merging into that N12 queue or you're stuck on the big sort of divert through to South Rand Road and to Lisa Park. So some really big traffic in that part of town. N1 Randburg up to Winnie Mandela off ramp in Four Ways is quite slow this morning. A crash in Pretoria, N1 North before Garsfontein. Traffic starting to push back there down towards Rigel Avenue. Durban's Commercial Highway badly backed up this morning. If you're coming out of Commercial's, big traffic down through the Duffs Road area in towards the M2. The M4 Southern Freeway already queuing into central Durban. And Cape Town, one crash at the Old Oak Road exit on the N1 inbound has been cleared, but it's straight away been replaced by another in pretty much the same place. So you've got a really big, heavy morning of traffic on the N1 from right back in sort of almost Justenburg territory. That's how bad it is. You've got the R300 queuing from deep back into Kales River to try and get into that N1 queue, and all those bridges there from sort of Brighton Road, Okavango Road, Brackenfell Boulevard, where they go across that N1, heavily backed up traffic conditions as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's rugby. Siya Kolisi has traded the field for the coach's box this weekend, while rising star Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu faces surgery. And soccer action, Themba Zwane coming off the bench to fire up a 2-0 win for Sundowns over SuperSport United. Details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 7 on this Wednesday, the 18th of September 2024. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. All the local and international news, current affairs, insights and opinions you need to lead the conversation today. Carefully curated and packaged for you. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and this is the second hour of the Morning Brief. Coming up in this hour, learners dropping out of school is part of the reason, one of the reasons why the matric class of 2024 is nearly 40% smaller than it was when these learners started grade 1 in 2013. And according to Statistics South Africa, 1.2 million learners were enrolled for grade 1 in 2013. Sadly, according to the Department of Basic Education, only 730,000 pupils will actually sit for this year's matric exams. We'll be talking to Elijah Mhlanga from the Department of Basic Education, and of course you can also weigh in. Help us understand from your vantage point what the issues are in as far as learner and pupil dropout. What's making these pupils drop out of school during the course of the 12 years of schooling, primary school and high school, of course. The other talking point is the convicted rapist and murderer, Thabo Bester, making an impassioned plea for access to a laptop. This he did in the High Court yesterday. Bester says he needs the laptop to prepare for his deportation case that is being heard in the High Court in Bloemfontein. He says he had lived without access to real-time information for about 16 months, and at some point he says he did not even know what the time was, time of day, something as basic as that. It's gotten us thinking about whether, as a society, a democratic society founded on human dignity and all of those values we hold so highly, is there something there for us to reflect about in terms of things like access to laptops and the internet for those who are held in detention? Ulrich Roux will weigh in on that within the next 15 or so minutes with me. And of course, we also have all of the regulars also in this hour. Modupi Makhalimele with your news updates every half an hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning. Ndauleng Lechela has all of your economics, business and market news covered. And of course, in this hour, Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. The numbers to dial on these issues that we've raised and any other issues that are on your mind this morning, 086 000 2032. You can also send us your WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. The second hour of the Morning Brief starts now.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So let's get to this story then. According to Statistics South Africa, 1.2 million learners were enrolled for grade 1 in 2013. Sadly, according to the Department of Basic Education, only 730,000 pupils will sit for this year's matric exams. Despite the number of matriculants sitting for final exams this year being higher than last year's, the class of 2024 is actually nearly 40% smaller than it was when these learners started grade 1. Learners dropping out of school is one of the reasons for the difference between the numbers of enrollments in 2013 and the number of those who will write matric exams. Statistics South Africa's 2021 General Household Survey found that 6 in 10 South Africans complete grade 12. 6 out of 10 complete grade 12. So let's speak then to the Department of Basic Education's Elijah Mhlanga, who joins me now for that conversation. Elijah, good morning. Concerning, and we are always lamenting this every year, but have you gotten any closer to understanding the full contours of the crisis of school dropouts? What is behind these dropouts?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Well, there are varying reasons for learners not reaching grade 12 at the same time as those that they started school with. But just to indicate to you, yesterday we told the portfolio committee that in grade 12 we have 727,000 young people who will be writing. But if you check in grade 10, there was still it was still 1.1 million, which is the number that we're talking about, as enrolled in 2013 when they started school. So you see that they stay in school until grade 10. But grade 10 is that grade where you choose subjects. That means grade 9 is decision time. So for the first time in grade 10, you are doing subjects that you have chosen for yourself. It's a new combination that you wouldn't have experienced before. So it means that it's a new start for you in the 3-year cycle of what we call the National Senior Certificate, because the National Senior Certificate is not just a matric. It starts in grade 10. So that's where complications begin. So in 2013, we had 1.1, and then in 2022, you still had that 1.148437 number. But that number drops in 2023, which is last year when they go to grade 11. It drops to 974,700. And again, in 2024, that number drops to 724, which then shows you that the learners are starting to struggle with the subjects that they have decided to choose for themselves from grade 10 onwards. I'm saying it is important that as families, as households, we are honest about the subjects that our children are choosing for themselves going into grade 10, because it is clear that the dropout happens between grade 10 and 11.
So that's not even a factor I had thought about, difficulty and battling with the curriculum and the subjects that will have been chosen. And that's a fascinating insight that you share, because for me, I was simply looking at the socio-economic factors that are at play. So you're saying this compounds, and I imagine it compounds what would be socio-economic factors as well.
Yeah, the last time I focused on the social impact, people said, no, you need to focus on education because that's what you're responsible for.
Yeah.
Find out what the reasons for the dropout are from an academic perspective. But it is true that still at that age, that's when young people become naughty. That's when they fall pregnant. That's when they fall in conflict with the law. That's when they get into drugs and drop out as well. That's when they also had families. That's when some of them go and find work, but at that same time, others go into TVET colleges. So while others are dropping out for some reasons, others are branching out to TVET colleges to pursue their studies there. So it's a combination of reasons. And we also know that there are tragedies. Some of them, they die or pass away for different reasons.
Yeah.
So it's like that. But from an academic perspective, it is a matter of them coping. So in other words, they're not necessarily dropping out. They are just failing to progress to grade 12. They are still there in the system. That's why we feel that we must not say dropping out.
Yeah.
It's just them not being able to progress to the next date on time.
It's a nuanced situation. So, Elijah, to lament is for, critics and commentators. To agitate is for civil society and everyone else. But you are in government and have the authority and the wherewithal to do something about it. What are you doing about this situation of pupils dropping out along the way and others not reaching the level of grade 12? What flagship initiative do you have in place to address it?
Well, we have a whole range of support measures that we actually shared even with the portfolio committee yesterday, but these are things that we do in schools. We create opportunities for learners to study in different places, taught by different teachers for better understanding. We encourage schools to spend more time supporting their learners, making sure that each learner is given the attention that they deserve so that they're not left behind. Our DG also goes to the schools and encourages the district directors, the circuit managers, and the school principals, as well as the learners themselves, and tells them to focus. We also avail different material that is designed differently. All this to ensure that they are still able to access the curriculum, but from different perspectives as part of the support. We use various methods as well of accessing the material, like videos and radio and internet and all these things to try avail the material to them.
Elijah, let me ask you to hold on there for just a second. Let me bring in Denver, one of our listeners in Cape Town, who actually did his research on the issue of school dropouts. Good morning, Denver. What do you want to share with us this morning?
Good morning, sir, and thank you for taking my call. My research was not specifically on school dropouts. The literature survey that I did covered the reason for dropout. The research was about the return on invested capital for apprentice training. The research covered a very important topic as to the dropout rate of school, and we looked at some of the European countries like Germany and Austria, and what we discovered from the research was that by the time children get to about 16 years old, they are no longer interested in being in a classroom. A lot of them really struggle being in the setting. Their bodies are changing, their hormones are changing. And what those countries did was they allowed for children to go through an apprentice training system from that point on, from the time they were 16, which speaks to the senior certificate and the fact that a standard 8 or a grade 10 was recognized as a formal certificate. That then allowed for them to do an apprenticeship, attend community colleges, and get a qualification as an artisan. And so when we look at South Africa and our socioeconomic conditions, we sometimes blame the dropouts because of the socioeconomic conditions that our students face and because of the subjects that they choose, because sometimes parents aren't able to guide the children on the subjects to take. But if we look at countries that don't have the socioeconomic problems and don't have the issues around parents being able to provide guidance for children, then what does that tell us?
Yeah, I hear you. Denver, thank you for that. Elijah, I suppose this talks to that point that you were making, that sometimes some of the pupils are not dropping out but are off-ramping and going into the TVET stream of education.
Yeah, that's correct. So the whole plan here is to cover for everyone. No one idea can cover everyone. We need to understand that learners are different. We need to try and make sure that the curriculum provides for everyone. That's why now we are advanced in terms of implementing the 3-stream model to allow those who are going to academic, allow those who are going to technical, and allow those who are going to vocational as well. Even if you look at our curriculum offering, we have now more than 30 subjects that are new, that are technical in nature, that we have introduced in the curriculum to try cover for each and everyone's taste. Yes.
Great stuff. I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That is Elijah Mhlanga, who speaks on behalf of the Department of Basic Education, talking issues to do with high pupil dropouts between grade 1 and grade 12, and just outlining what the contours of the issue are and what initiatives are in place to address it.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. The top 6 contestants tackle a classic bake that's enjoyed all over the world, the humble pie. After learning the art of making pastry from scratch, they each prepare their own family-style pie filled with their favorite flavors. That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for a 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at Outsurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Search for the Last Unicorn tells the story of the search for the northern white rhino, an animal that was officially declared extinct in 2018. Follow Saving the Survivors as they travel to South Sudan in the hope of giving us a second chance to save the northern white rhino. Airs Sunday the 22nd of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So this story has gotten a lot of people talking. The convicted rapist and murderer, Thabo Bester, has made an impassioned plea for access to a laptop. This he did in the High Court in Pretoria yesterday, representing himself, by the way. Bester says he needs the laptop to prepare for his deportation case that is being heard in the High Court in Bloemfontein. He says he had lived without access to real-time information for the past 16 months and did not even have access to a watch and did not even know what the time of day was for over 16 months. Bester also says he is allowed 2 30-minute visits a month. He also claimed that he had limited access to legal recourse, as every legal counsel that had come to see him was required to make a booking that would be granted based on availability. Let's bring into the conversation now Ulrich Roux, who is the managing director of Ulrich Roux and Associate. Ulrich, good morning and thank you for your time. We wanted to just tap into your insights and your experience. Is any of what Thabo Bester is complaining about irregular in your experience? The lack of access to a watch, the lack of access to a laptop and internet and the likes?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. Remember that even a prisoner who is under the control of the Department of Correctional Services is also a member of society and also enjoys constitutional rights as set out in our Constitution. Having said that, there is no provision in our Correctional Services Act which allows him the benefits that he asked for in court yesterday. There is no requirement on the department to ensure that an inmate has access to the internet or has access to a laptop or has access to a watch. These are all things that would be seen as luxuries, and quite simply, he is not entitled to those luxuries if he is in custody. He is, of course, entitled to legal representation, and in this instance, if he can't afford private legal representation, then he should apply for legal aid, which is free legal representation provided by the state, and should he qualify for legal aid, then he will have a lawyer who represents him. I think where his argument lacked merit yesterday, though, was the fact that he said that he had no access to any resources. It was impossible for him to defend himself in his deportation case. Yet he managed to bring this urgent application before court. He drafted an entire application. He drafted a notice of motion. And accordingly, the court felt that, well, given that you are here now, there's nothing precluding you from adequately preparing for your defense in the deportation matter.
I heard part of his argument being that the resources he has to prepare for his defense and this application are largely hard copy, book based, and he was saying that a lot of the legal developments and research and the latest information is not in hard copy books, but is actually in electronic resources. Does he have a point there that it might impinge, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, it might impinge on his ability to prepare if he doesn't have access to the latest information and developments that are electronic and not hard copy?
No, I think Mr. Bester suffers from delusions of grandeur. He forgets that he has already been convicted of murder and rape, and he's serving that sentence already. And whilst serving that sentence, he escaped prison, using whatever resources were available in order to do that. So it is obviously, he is classified as a high-risk person in the prison. And it's obviously a risk for him to be furnished with these electronic devices. Again, he has access to legal representation, and the legal representative who does represent him should be able to access these resources, which he claims is crucial in order for him to formulate his defense.
So he made mention of a number of jurisdictions during his presentation, citing examples such as the United States, how they deal with these issues of access, particularly to the internet, Finland, Denmark, and Belgium. As far as you understand, how does South Africa fare and compare with other democratic societies in as far as prisoner rights are concerned, particularly rights that have to do with access to information and being able to prepare for your case and your defense?
Well, whether his argument was accurate or not is irrelevant in my view. At the moment, he is confined to the South African criminal justice system, to our Criminal Procedure Act, and to our Correctional Services Act, and whatever he's confined in those acts is what is applicable to him. Should he not be satisfied with those acts, then he must bring an application to the Constitutional Court to have them amended. But having said that, once again, he is a convicted felon who has been convicted of rape and murder, and he's escaped prison. So it is obviously a danger for the department to furnish him with any electronic devices or with access to internet, given his past conduct. And it is not the norm. The prisons in South Africa do have libraries. To my knowledge, in some instances, they do have controlled access to the internet in order for people to do research, etc. And I'm sure that he also has access to this. But again, if he's not satisfied with the provisions in our acts and the acts applicable to his current situation, then he should bring an application to the Constitutional Court to have these acts amended.
Right.
He's not going to succeed in the High Court.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights. That's Ulrich Roux, who is the managing director at Ulrich Roux and Associates. I heard the expression that for an attorney, if you represent yourself, you will either be your worst client or your worst lawyer. And that applies to attorneys, and I wonder what the situation is. I couldn't shake the feeling that Thabo Bester would be well served by actually acceding to what's available by way of legal representation, and perhaps some of his arguments would find traction. But what do I know? All right, that brings us to 7:30. Let's check in with Modupi Makhalimele with the latest news headlines.
Thank you very much, Brother Thulas, and very good morning. In your headlines this hour, about 500,000 or more than 70% of social media posts about the late former Cabinet Minister Pravin Gordhan are negative. Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says his department does not intend to rubber stamp the final version of the White Paper on Citizenship, Immigration and Refugee Protection. And the U.S. President Joe Biden has called on Sudan's warring parties to re-engage in negotiations to end their 17-month conflict. Those are your headlines. A full news update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Major backlogs coming out of Petermaritzburg on your way to Durban. A big crash at Ashburton. The Durban-bound carriageway is closed with traffic backing up dramatically. And then if you're on your way up into Petermaritzburg approaching Ashburton, there's quite a queue in that scene as well. You might want to avoid Durban-bound N3 just for the time being. That queue is impressive. It is growing and it will take some time to clear once the scene is being cleared. Over at Joburg, crash on the N12 at Ford Trekker Road, which backed everything up basically out of the way. Traffic is starting to flow. There's a crash on the M1 North leaving Soweto before you get to Maresburg Road, and a breakdown on the M1 South near Old Joburg Road, keeping the pressure on that run through Brockfontein interchange. No traffic lights off the highways at Waterkloof Air Force Base, Trickard Road and Solomon Mshlangu are routes that are under pressure today. And Cape Town, the N1 inbound remains heavy. A secondary crash this morning on the N1 inbound around Old Oak Road. It means the N1 into town is backed heavily back into the farmland country, back at Justenburg. That's out towards Stellenbosch, and the R300 heavy queues coming through from the Stellenbosch arterial exit deep into Cales River. So N1 inbound, R300 north worth avoiding. And there's a crash on the N2 leaving Cape Town by the airport exit, just slowing you up as you approach that scene. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning, Zai. I get the sense that something is cooking. You have these partnerships that are just almost destined, by time and circumstance to come together. Siya Kolisi, Rassie Erasmus. It seems to me that's one of those.
Yeah, and it feels like we're going to have two captains steering this ship, one with the passion and one with the strategy.
Yeah.
Or maybe just both of them. What they're going to be cooking, I have no idea, but it's so exciting. I can't wait.
Off, one being the boss and sitting in the coach's box and the other being in the field, to them sitting in the box, coach's box.
And I just feel like that box, Thulas, might need more space for these two rugby geniuses. And that two geniuses that we're referring to is Rassie Erasmus in the coaching box, together with Captain Siya Kolisi. Kolisi now, he's dealing with a facial fracture. He will guide the team off the field as well as part of the coaching team while waiting for his injury to heal. Let's hear what Rassie Erasmus had to say.
Siya was brought here not to play, but to be on standby if somebody gets injured, but also to help lead the team off the field whilst preparing for this important game. So it was always a plan that he wouldn't play. It's not a thing that it has to be reset after 2 weeks exactly, so he can still play next week at Mbombela and then get it reset. So he's in that time frame where that will be fixed after Mbombela test match.
More rugby news. The Irish international Ian Henderson has backed continued South African involvement in the United Rugby Championship. The 2024-25 URC campaign begins on Friday night, will be the fourth for the Bulls, Stormers, Lions and Sharks in what was once a Northern Hemisphere competition. Now, reports during the off-season suggested that talks have been held over a British and Irish league, but the Ulster captain believes exposure to the South African sides has raised standards across the league. Soccer action. Mamelodi Sundowns triumphed in a one-sided Tshwane derby last night, defeating SuperSport United 2-0 at Loftus Versfeld Stadium. Sundowns mentor Manqoba Niti says he wants to see his team being ruthless against their opposition in the coming weeks.
SuperSport is one of the stingiest teams in the league, but for our boys to come out the way they did, it was really encouraging. My only concern is that probably we are not ruthless enough. If you were to check our race chart in the map in the games that we are playing, you check our passing maps and our passing networks, you see that we are doing a lot of positive things, but when they don't translate into a number of goals, it always causes you problems.
Elsewhere, Bayern Munich's Harry Kane scored 4 goals to become England's top scorer in the Champions League or European Cup history. It was a 9-2 demolition of Dynamo Zagreb. Kane's fourth, his third penalty of the game, was his 33rd Champions League goal as he passed Wayne Rooney's old record of 30. Here's Harry Kane.
Yeah, amazing game. I mean, a bit of a crazy game for sure. I think the first half was really good from us. We really put the pressure on them, took our chances well. And then second half, within 5 minutes, the game is right back on. So we need to learn from that. We need to be better from that. But then the reaction after was great. We really kind of stepped up another gear. And I to score all those goals in the end was a great night.
Aston Villa made a stylish return. They had a 3-0 win at Swiss side Young Boys in their Champions League first game, and that was in the tournament for 41 years. In the meantime, Juventus, they beat the visitors PSV Eindhoven 3-1. Liverpool recovering from a goal down to beat AC Milan 3-1 in their Champions League opener. And in the Carabao Cup, Manchester United thrashed League One, which is the third tier of English football, Barnsley 7-0 at Old Trafford. More sport here on the Morning Brief at the top of the hour. For SAFM, I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
And Dauleng Lechela joins us for that now. And Dauleng, let's cover some company news. You've got news from Hyprop, and you're saying that they remain positive about the outlook for the sector, the property sector.
That's right, Tula. So the property company is quite optimistic about its prospects. It's pegging 4 to 7% growth in its distributable income per share for its 2025 financial year. Hyprop sees promising signs of growth in South Africa and globally, but its forecast depends on no severe load shedding and no local or regional economic shocks. The upbeat outlook comes alongside its annual results, where it's recorded vacancies under 2% and rental reversions improving, coming in at 5.8%. This from a negative 7 reversion reported for 2023. Now, reversions refer to increases upon renewal or reletting. And so in this reporting period, the group benefited from increased rental payments upon renewal of leases. The owner of malls like Rosebank Mall and Canal Walk also said a strong showing from its local and Eastern Europe portfolios boosted its performance this period. Despite an upbeat operational performance, though, the bottom line, or rather the metric used to determine the success of a property company, was downbeat. Hyprop reported an 8.6% decline in distributable income per share. This, however, was better than its revised guidance in March, where it expected a fall of 15 to 20%.
And Dauleng, you're also looking at Met Air dumping its Turkish unit. What's that about?
So the manufacturer of vehicle components, Mete, is making a U-turn on its operations in Turkey. It's selling its stake in a company that formed part of its Turkish division, Mutlu, for 195 billion rand. This move comes as Mete attempts to reduce its exposure to Turkey's challenging economic conditions. The country's hyperinflation, depreciation of the lira, high interest rates, and elevated inflation rates have been impacting Mete's financial performance, which is reported in the South African rand. Now, by de-risking its operations, Mete looks to reduce the negative effects of Turkey's volatile market and stabilize its own financials. The proceeds from the sale will be used to boost its automotive wire harness business, Hersto, as well as settle and refinance some of its debt. After completing the sale, Mete will become South African-focused vehicle component manufacturer. Its goal is to become a major player in Africa's growing mobility market, which has promising economic prospects. Now, investors in the meantime cheered this move, upbeat about the sale, with some saying the sale price appeared appropriate for the risks in the region and the financial effect of high interest rates. This also saw Mete's share price soar in yesterday's trading session, ending 7% higher. This was its biggest one-day gain since July.
All right, lastly, Dauleng, another check, please, on the Asian markets, the U.S. futures, as well as how the JSE closed.
So Asian markets seesawing between gains and losses this morning as investors awaited the Fed's interest rate decision. Traders seem to be uncertain about the magnitude of the expected cut. Meanwhile, the dollar maintained its gains against the Japanese yen, boosted by stronger than expected U.S. economic data. Sticking with Japan, the main bourse there, the Nikkei up 0.04%. Chinese markets are back online, and the Shanghai index is in negative territory, down 0.3%. In Wall Street, futures are just above the flat line, in the green following yesterday's mixed finish. Back at home, sentiment seems to be positive despite the caution in global markets. The JSE closing yesterday's session in the green, up 1.25%. The Rand rand trading in a steady range, currently sitting at 17.60 to the dollar from about 17.59 an hour ago.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ndauleng Lechela. She will have one more update for you just before the JSE opens, and that update will happen just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
All right, let's talk to Advocate Sipho Mantula for that Africa Update. Good morning, Sipho. I suppose the election of Abdelmajid Tebboune as president of Algeria is now water under the bridge.
Refreshing morning to us and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Indeed, what we saw yesterday, one can say it was premature or it was a very fast sway-in of the sitting president for the second term at the People's Palace on the west coast of the capital yesterday, after the court confirmed his win on Saturday, that he got, if you look at the numbers, to us from 94% it went to 84%, meaning there was the recount by the Electoral Commission. So also that the opposition members got some few votes, but at the same time he got almost 84% of the vote. And as you have said, the swearing yesterday, it's more like of an inauguration that has happened for President Tebboune, who's back as the second term of the president of Algiers. Many challenges ahead of him, but the voter turnout also to us was very low. It was less than 50%. It means that the people of Algiers did not go out to the polls and vote in their numbers.
Yeah, whatever the reservations, it's now water under the bridge. I did see a statement from President Ramaphosa congratulating President Tebboune. Let's talk about Ghana now. I see that there have been some protests, and they also have to do with issues that relate to elections.
That's quite true. And remember, this is the party of a former president, John Mahama, the National Democratic Congress, that yesterday they went on a nationwide to say the voters' roll irregularities, demanding that there should be an independent forensic audit to look at that. And that goes to the Electoral Commission. Nana Akufo-Addo is not coming back. There is another candidate for his party, Mahmoud Bouhami, who will be contesting for the new Patriotic Party. The elections are towards the end of the year, 7th of December. But now, if you are still contesting the electoral voters' roll, it's very important. It's one of the tools of the elections that if you don't get it right, that's where you get electoral irregularities and fraud. So the opposition, they went on to protest about in more than 15 regions of Ghana, raising the issues, but it appears the Electoral Commission has agreed with them by identifying those errors in the voters' roll.
Sipho, I see there are ructions within the Tigray People's Liberation Front in Ethiopia. What's happening there? Sweeping changes coming in?
No, definitely. But this is sad when you look at TPLF, that they come out of the Tshwane agreement in 2022. Now, over the weekend, there was a meeting of the Central Committee. Yesterday, they came out with a statement that they have expelled 16 members, including Getachewa Reda, who was a former deputy chairperson, and other members who are at the high level. They are saying they've embezzled some funds to us. So it is not a fraction of ideologies only, but there's an issue around management of the funds of the party. The issue also is fostering division that they see from other members. And these are high-ranking members of TPLF, and that also affects their reconciliation with the federal government. Because once you see TPLF having cracks, you must be worried that Abiy Ahmed might have a walkover in terms of dealing with TPLF.
And closer to home and across the Limpopo, I see that the trouble continues for the Mugabes. I saw the former First Lady attending a public function a few weeks ago, but their son, the late former President Robert Mugabe's son, Bellarmine, in trouble with the law.
He's trouble in the law to us, and that happens in our borders at the Bay Bridge. The young boy was rushing to a wedding in Harare, and now the police are said to give the details of your driver, his passport, and that's where there was a friction. But yesterday, the magistrate court issued a warrant of arrest for this incident that happened last month. And also there was a knife squabble. There was the issue of tension when he was fighting with the police. They have to take a knife from this Mugabe's young son. I think it's the privilege of the children of the people who are coming from the highest offices to us that they tend to undermine the law, even when they are being requested. But this is a lesson that has been given to the son of the former president of Zimbabwe.
And lastly, in your historical archives, Sipho, one of those that I truly appreciate that are about the battle against forgetting. What happened on this day in 1992?
It's almost 32 years ago, and our listeners from Eastern Cape, they will recall that 70,000 angry mourners gathered at the then King Williamstown to pay respect to the victims of the Bishop massacre that involved the Cisgiant Defence Force on the 7th of September 1992. You recall that march that involved your Krisani, your Sisulu, your then President Cyril Ramaphosa, and what it created about Khozo and what Krisani said, the late Krisani, about General Oupa Khozo. So it's a very important memory archive to us as we are looking at our 30 years of our democracy, but 32 years. This is what happened on this day. Asante sana Thulas, as was leading a conversation, SAFM observing the Heritage Month.
All right, Sipho, thank you for that. A necessary reminder of our journey that we've traversed and how we got to this point, to this democracy that we now enjoy. That's Sipho Mantula there with your daily Africa update here on The Morning Brief.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain. But paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said,
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, Baye!
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Temperature Rising tells the story of 3 activists as they grapple with what thinking globally and acting locally means as they fight the barriers to climate action. Airs Sunday the 8th of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Thulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let's lead the conversation together. Let's take some of your calls. You can call us on 086 000 2032, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. And let's take Kwena, who is out in Midrand. Kwena, good morning. You want to talk about education? I imagine part of it has to do with the dropout rates.
Yes, Thulasizwe. Good morning, Thulasizwe, and good show. Welcome to SAFM.
Thank you.
It's my first time talking to you.
Thank you. You should call more.
Yeah, I should. Actually, I listen more and send a voice note. So, yeah. So, Thulasizwe, look, I'm glad the representative from, I think, Department of Education has mentioned that most kids drop out after grade,
Grade 10. Yeah, grade 10, where the subject choices may happen.
Yeah, so I think these guys, the Department of Education, they've missed this when they were changing the syllabus, because I remember when I was at school, I exited secondary around 2008 and 2009, and we were introduced to that. And that is a broken system, because it's more like you are studying a varsity sort of degree, because degree takes 3 years. They introduced a subject that needs to qualify you for the matric certificate for 3 years. The question is, why can't they introduce it the moment you reach to secondary? So the first 2 years from grade 8 to grade 9, it is the year of adjusting to that subject. If you are going to introduce it at grade 10, the children in the first 2 years, they're still trying to figure out that particular subject, because it's not like it's a continuation of what they were doing from grade 8 towards grade 9.
So an earlier transition is what you are advocating for there, Gwena, out in Midrand. Thank you for that call. I'll take a few more of your calls in just a moment, but let me take a quick traffic update with Rob Byrne.
SAFM.
guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, this is important. If you're leaving Pietermaritzburg, the N3 is closed to Durban-bound traffic. There's been a very big collision at Ashburton. I believe a taxi involved in it may well have gone off the embankment and down the side. There's a lot of EMS guys on the scene. Nothing getting through, literally nothing getting through. All that's happening is traffic is parking back beyond Market Road and pretty much back towards the sort of Pietermaritzburg, sort of bypass New England Road, Ortman Road territory. It's a major queue. The R103 is going to be heavily congested between Ashburton and Pietermaritzburg as motorists look to use the Polly Shorts option as the alternative. There is a bit of a slowdown, so just be aware of that as you approach Market Road going into Pietermaritzburg due to the on-looking factor. But if you're coming out of Pietermaritzburg to Durban, give yourself a ton of time to get through. If it's not urgent, travel a bit later. Pretoria this morning, still with a crash on the M1 North after Rigel up by Garsfontein. It's quite a heavy backlog of traffic back towards Boerta Avenue territory. N1 Randburg up to William Mandela off-ramp is slow. N1 South from Rivonia to William Mandela very slow as well. And a crash coming out of Soweto on the N1 just before you get to the Mareesburg exit, so that is quite heavy. And an unusual backlog coming out of Bruma and Kensington, the R24 out past Eastgate Mall into a collision just before Giluli. Centre change. Cape Town, very heavy traffic on the N1 inbound from Justenburg to Belleville. That is a crash just past the R300 towards Old Oak Road. It's the second collision on that scene this morning that's still causing a major backlog for N1 inbound traffic. Behind that, the R300 is backing up almost as far as Stellenbosch Arterial. Some real problems getting off the R300 and into the N1. R44 at Lord Charles out in Somerset West. Those traffic lights are down this morning, so there's a bit of a backlog. And if you're coming in on Marine Drive, that is still heavy. Table View to Sunset Beach, and then you've got the daily queue that you work through at Woodbridge Island. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Years, Kumbulekaya has been fostering healing through forgiveness and reconciliation.
Are you asking me that?
Yes.
I grew up without a mom.
So what happened to your family?
What family? You are my family. What happened to you?
Witness as families forgive one another and reunite after a long time. Catch the new season of Kumbulekaya on SABC1 every Wednesday at 9 p.m.
For years, Outsurance has been saying they'll save you money on your car insurance, or you can ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand cash if they don't. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
I was not happy with what I was paying. I heard about the 500 Rand from Outsurance, but they give me lesser amount for my car. I'm paying 523 Rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
So here's how it works. SMS out to 30754. We'll give you a no-obligation car insurance quote. If the quote is less than you're currently paying, you'll end up saving money on your car insurance every month. And if it's more than you're currently paying, you can ask for 500 Rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and claim free for 3 years or more, tell us you want 1,500 Rand.
Give Outsurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Temperature Rising tells the story of 3 activists as they grapple with what thinking globally and acting locally means as they fight the barriers to climate action. Airs Sunday the 8th of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Mzansi, what has become of our country? Gender-based violence is eating our moral fabric, and we can no longer afford to turn a blind eye. This violence affects us all, occurring in various forms including femicide, which is the intentional killing of a woman because of her gender. It takes place anywhere, anytime, even in our own safe spaces at home. Working together with social partners through the National Strategic Plan on GBVF, the government aims to create a GBVF-free South Africa. As we acknowledge the gains from our 30 years of freedom and democracy, let us also work together to break the cycle of GBVF on our home ground. Call the 24-hour GBVF Command Center number on 0800 428 428 or text *120*7867#. A message from the GCIS.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
And I'll take those calls. Let's try and keep them short and sharp and to the point. Starting with Thabo, who is in Kronstadt. And Thabo, you want to talk about your namesake, Thabo Bester. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Thulasizwe. I believe that advocate has misdirected himself and partly contradicted himself in that as much as the Act does not grant him the right to devices, it does not also prohibit him from accessing the devices. We need to appreciate that Bester is actually wearing two hats, both as a lawyer and as an applicant. And as a lawyer, he has got the right to access relevant materials, all the resources that they need for him to represent himself. But we must also appreciate that he's also an applicant and a risk at the same time. So I believe that he has to have access to the resources, but there must be a controlled access, because it's true that the latest material, the case laws, literature on law that he might need as a lawyer, it's electronical. It's very limited that would need is going to be on hard copy. So I believe that the nature of the constitutional democracy that we have actually allows him as a lawyer, because he's representing himself in this particular case. So I believe that he has to have that controlled access.
All right, I've got to thank you for that, Thabo. Interesting take there on the issue of Thabo Bester and access to a laptop and the internet to prepare for his case. Let me move to Moses in Bramley. And Moses, you want to talk about foreign nationals employed in the restaurants industry. Good morning.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. You know, I was listening to your interview today. These people are always reacting all the time. Each and every department in our government, they react. They don't actually being proactive to the situation. All the time, they react. The thing is, they are just talking now just to pass the time. And for the fact of the matter, they will only do this inspection. They said they will be rent now, and nothing will become of it. These are people who trillions were spent on corruption in this government. Today, they don't even have enough inspectors. You know, you see everything. It's getting worse. But we've got a government that actually have the resources, but they spend it on themselves. Right. You look at the freeways, they are dirty. They almost collapse each and every state-owned entity.
I hear you.
So where in the world can you expect people to do better? We are just wasting our time with this government.
I hear you there, Moses, out in Bramley, talking about a reactive approach to these issues of enforcement and saying that we need a more proactive approach. Of course, he's responding to the raids that we are told are being undertaken by the Department of Employment and Labour, as well as the Department of Home Affairs, to try and rein in issues of non-compliance in the restaurant industry. And Moses' concern there is that the government, in its various manifestations and agencies, tends to be reactive as opposed to being proactive. Of course, if you were listening to my interview with the Inspector General at the Department of Employment and Labour, she did say that they've stepped up in reaction to that social media video about the Babel restaurant in Pretoria, but that's not to say that they don't have proactive enforcement and inspections taking place every other day, but also acknowledging that the resources will never be enough. About 2,000 inspectors, but the workload is quite significant, what they do need to cover by way of ensuring that there's compliance with labor laws. And that brings us to 8 a.m. Let's check in with Modupi Makhalemele with the latest news.
Thank you very much, Thulas. The top stories this hour, mostly negative social media posts about Pravin Gordhan, and Home Affairs refuses to approve the white paper on immigration. A very good morning to you. About 500,000 or more than 70% of social media posts about the late former cabinet minister Pravin Gordhan are negative. This is according to the media monitoring platform Acumen Media. Social media posts about Gordhan began at the time of his hospitalization with most of them blaming him for the collapse of state-owned enterprises. Acumen Media's Tonya Cowrie says only around 7% of the posts are positive.
For the past 7 days, this was leading up to Praveen's hospitalization and his subsequent passing and the obituaries that have come through since then, and also the preparations for the funeral. Those results on their own are just under 100,000, 95,500 results on their own. But when you look at the engagement, so people actually engaging with those posts that are out there, it's a whopping 492,000. So almost 500,000 people engaging on social media about Praveen Gordhan's death, and all sorts. We're getting all sorts of media coming through.
Meanwhile, the ANC will hold the second leg of the memorial service for Gordhan in Durban this afternoon. This follows the first memorial, which included a private viewing of Gordhan's body at his home in Pretoria yesterday. Gordhan's body arrived in Durban last night. He died in a Joburg hospital last Friday at the age of 75 following a battle with cancer. President Cyril Ramaphosa has accorded Gordhan a special official Category 2 funeral, which will be held at the Inkosi Albert Luthuli International Convention Center in Durban tomorrow. Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber says his department does not intend to rubber stamp the final version of the White Paper on Citizenship, Immigration and Refugee Protection. The aim of the White Paper is to repeal the Refugees Act and to overhaul the immigration system. Clamping down on immigration transgressors is at the core of the legislative process. Schreiber told Parliament's Home Affairs Portfolio Committee yesterday that the White Paper would be tailored to align with the objectives of the GNU.
We have the opportunity to supplement some of this work through making sure that the legal changes actually align with what the President and the administration have put on the table. I think one thing that's very important, Chair, to caution against is we should not have a misalignment between what the Presidency and this department is doing in terms of modernizing Home Affairs and reframing our systems.
The non-profit organization Water Can has attributed the water crisis in Gauteng to the poor planning of both national and provincial governments. Several municipalities in Gauteng have been struggling with water challenges for several months now. Ekurhuleni, Joburg and Tshwane are among the most affected. Watercan's Dr. Ferial Adams says the government should appoint competent senior managers to ensure sustainable water supply in Gauteng.
They keep talking about, this is a problem because of population growth. The truth is, population does not grow overnight. It does give you a number of years. You can see trends, you can see growth, and you can plan accordingly. So they need to plan better, and they need to get skilled people into positions for water and sanitation.
And U.S. President Joe Biden has called on Sudan's warring parties to re-engage in negotiations to end their 17-month conflict. He has also urged them to facilitate humanitarian access. Biden has warned that famine in Sudan is threatening millions of people. The BBC's Peter Bowes has more.
Calling it a senseless war that's created one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, President Biden urged the rival factions, the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces to pull back, re-engage in negotiations and improve humanitarian access. He said the United States stood with the Sudanese people who deserve freedom, peace and justice, adding that the US would continue to evaluate further atrocity allegations and potential sanctions against those contributing to the conflict. More than 12,000 people have been killed across Sudan since the war started in April last year.
The top story: about 500,000 or more than 70% of social media posts about the late former cabinet minister Pravin Gordhan are negative. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Update on this taxi crash at Ashburton that is on the Durban-bound carriageway. The highway is effectively closed. It is a fatal collision as well, so it is going to take a while for this scene to be completely clear. The taxi has gone down the embankment. There's a bucky involved that's still up on the top there at Ashburton, so major delays all the way back really to about sort of Ortman Road, New England Road, so bottom of Peter Maritzburg bypass. You hit the most incredible backlog of traffic. Market Road off to the R103 and the R103 down to Polly Shorts on the alternative to Ashburton is heavily jammed up, and it will be that sort of traffic pattern for some time this morning as authorities deal with that scene. Rand, the N1 from Old Joburg to New Road is fairly busy. R24 leaving Bruma, passing Eastgate out to Galuli's, being held up by a collision scene there. And Cape Town, just to note, the M5 is super heavy today. It's still backing up from sort of Plumstead, Ottery territory all the way through to the N2. And the N1 crash at the Old Oak Road exit on your way into Cape Town in the Belleville region, not quite completely cleared yet. Traffic stays heavy from Kryfontein, Eustonburg, and the R300 big queues up from Van Riebeeck Road to try and get into the N1. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
In your SFM sports headlines, it's cricket action today. The stand-in captain Aiden Markram leads the Proteas into their first ODI against Afghanistan, aiming to grow and win. And in rugby, Siya Kolisi has traded the field for the coach's box this weekend. Details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. All the local and international news, current affairs, insights and opinions you need to lead the conversation today. Carefully curated and packaged for you. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, here to deliver your morning brief. We're into the third hour. We've already had a jam-packed 2 hours where we were reflecting on a variety of topics, including the blitz, the drive by the Department of Employment and Labour focusing on compliance or otherwise in the restaurant sector. We did talk a bit about the high dropout rate and the numbers that tell us that, only 40% of the people, in fact, the number of people who will be sitting for matric exams is 40% lower than the number of pupils that started grade 1 in 2013, and a variety of factors were considered that contribute to the dropout rates. So we've also been talking about the issues about school subjects, how school subjects are being chosen, and the impact thereof in some of those conversations. So coming up in this hour, we will touch on our science focus will be on the issue of migraines, and I believe it's pronounced migraines as opposed to migraines. You can correct me on that. Just their impact, the debilitating impact when we discuss the science of life, that feature coming up at about 8:20, that conversation coming up then. But we're also looking at your finances ahead of the announcement of the repo rate decision of the Monetary Policy Committee. Standard Bank is telling us that it has recorded, get this, a 52% year-on-year increase in new credit cards that are issued up to the end of August 2024. That is 52% year on year, and that's compared to the same period in 2023. So that conversation coming up within the next 20 minutes or so. Mudupi Makhalemele with your news updates every half hour. We'll also have Rob Byrne updating you with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan watching your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechala with another update after 8:30 of your economics, business and market news. And you're also taking your calls, and the number to dial for that is 086 000 2032. Also, your WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. The third hour of the morning brief starts now.
TUT Matasansa ladies are focused on full points as they chase a suitable position in the top half. But UWC want to triumph and pressurize log leaders. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. TUT Matasansa Ladies FC versus UWC Ladies FC on Saturday 21 September at 8:30 a.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Spurs set their sights on 3 points and trust their strategy to contain their visitors.
And there's the flick, and there's the goal. Pedro Porro.
While the Bees have a huge responsibility to illustrate that if they play impressive football for the entire duration, they will march out of the pitch a happy outfit.
Narrow angle, hits the post, back to Mpuemo, 1-0.
This is the Premier League. Catch the thrilling contest between Tottenham Hotspur FC and Brentford FC on Saturday 21 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's talk about news that impacts your pocket now. And Standard Bank is telling us that it has recorded a 52% year-on-year increase in new credit cards issued, and that's up to the end of August 2024. And this is compared to the same period in 2023. The bank says despite this increase, the average approved limits were slightly lower for 2024. Standard Bank says these high volumes suggest consumers could be relying on credit cards more. Let's bring in then Dumelo Ramogondo, who is the head of credit at Standard Bank. And good morning to you, Dumelo. Just taking these numbers as comprehensively as you can, what is the picture that emerges in terms of reliance on credit, the granting of credit, and I suppose the health or otherwise of the use of credit by consumers?
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe, and to your listeners. You're indeed right. I mean, we are seeing a significant growth, at least in terms of sales on new credit cards this year, 52% year on year compared to last year. And that for us definitely suggests that, I mean, we know from a South African consumer perspective, consumers have been cash-strapped. We've been sort of living in times where the interest rates have been high for quite some time, and inflation has been quite high for quite some time. So we know that that definitely hits deep in consumers' pockets. And we do believe that consumers are definitely looking into credit to try and basically ease their cash flow. And I think some of this would be because of that. But at the same time, we also do see that a lot more consumers that are actually taking up these credit cards are also using them more as a transactional tool. And that would also then talk to potentially customers probably trying to maximize on the rewards that credit cards generally come with, given that they generally have a higher sort of rewards points compared to, for example, other forms of transactional accounts. So I think it's a combination of both. There are consumers that are living for a bit, or they're looking for a bit of cash flow, and therefore they're looking at the credit cards, but also you do have those that seeing the credit card more as a transactional product and trying to maximize on what they can actually receive on rewards.
At this point, are you seeing anything that is making you worried, Dumelo, about the levels of dependence on credit cards versus the balanced use and responsible use of credit cards?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as part of your opening, you did mention that if you look at the limits that we're granting this year versus last year, the limits are actually a bit lower than last year, which sort of talks to the fact that the disposable income that the consumers would have had in the past has probably lessened, and therefore affordability is becoming a bit more of an issue. However, I mean, we are encouraged by the fact that we're not seeing sort of our consumers going out there and making sort of one-time huge purchases, which generally would actually be problem, or at least be a concern on our side, especially when we're looking, for example, at the ability to then repay, because then they will be using a credit card more as a loan facility. But those that are actually using it more to deal the essentials, because you can actually see that most of the purchases are actually going into the essentials, so the groceries, retail, sort of clothing. Those are sort of the main categories where we think customers buying from, and they're actually constantly paying us back, at least at a minimum, the minimum payment. We also obviously see a big rise on sort of budget purchases in terms of customers buying something and saying,
I will actually pay it off in the next 3 months or the next 6 months. And that, for me, sort of talks more to customers trying to manage their cash flow, but also using it to sort of help them a little bit to sort of go one step further than they would have normally been able to without that credit card.
All right, I've got to thank you for those insights. That's Tumelo Ramukondo, who is the head of credit at Standard Bank. Let's bring into the conversation then Lizette Isal Diskeper, who is chief economist at the Bureau for Economic Research. Good morning to you, Lizette. So listening to that conversation, Standard Bank is perhaps just one vantage point from which you could look at it, the issue of credit card usage and credits. Please locate that conversation for us within the context of the inflation figures we are expecting a bit later on today, as well as the interest rate decision of the MPC that we anticipate tomorrow.
Sure. Good morning. We know the consumer is under pressure, and some of them are clearly reaching out to credit. Inflation has been relatively high. Interest rates have been very high. But on both fronts, there is potentially some good news coming. If we look at the inflation figures that are expected today for August, they are expected to come in around 4.5% year-on-year, which is the lowest rate we've seen in quite some time. So prices are still increasing, but at least the rate of increases is slowing a little bit. We've obviously also seen a string of fuel price cuts, which those of us that are paying at the fuel pumps are feeling quite directly. With inflation at 4.5%, it's right there where the Reserve Bank wants it to be. And importantly, the expectation of forecast is that inflation is expected to stay around this 4.5% mark for some time. And this should give the South African Reserve Bank scope to cut its policy interest rate. So at the moment, we think the SARB could cut by 25 basis points. There's a slight possibility that they might cut by 50, but at least a little bit of relief. Of course, this is not taking back all the interest rate hikes that we've seen over the last couple of years. We do see some further interest rate cuts going forward, but rates remain relatively high. So those of us with credit will get a little relief, but the pressure will still be on.
Yeah, and I don't suppose that the word aggressive is a word you can use in the context of rate cuts and also with reference to the Monetary Policy Committee. What I'm asking is, you are saying slight possibility of 50 basis, but more likely 25 basis points. I'm asking about the subsequent meetings towards the end of the year and into the new year. Your projections and anticipation, it's unlikely that there will be an aggressive streak of cuts, isn't it? Is it?
Yes, it seems unlikely that there will be very aggressive in cutting. I do think that we will see further interest rate cuts. We are currently looking at about 100 basis points, so that's about a full percentage point over the next few meetings. So if they do go by 50 now, that doesn't mean that they will continue to go by 50. They might go by less in subsequent meetings. We do know that inflation, yes, it's around 4.5%, but it's not moving significantly lower. If you would see the rand exchange rate being stronger for some time, and that's filtering through to a lower inflation profile, if we continue to see fuel price declines, if inflation expectations start lowering, then the Reserve Bank has scope to cut interest rates by more. But at this time, I think they're just going to be cautious and careful because they also don't want inflation to shoot up once again.
Lastly then, Lizette, if I'm a listener listening to this conversation and wanting to cut through all of the jargon and the big words that you and I have been using, what is the bottom line? What do I do at this very moment with my personal finances, the debts and the likes? What is all of this telling me?
It's telling us that inflation is moving a little bit lower, so that is going to help you a little bit with your expenses going forward. It is telling us that interest rates are likely to come down a little bit. So it's going to give you a little bit relief on your debt. You're going to be paying a little bit less every month, but you're still going to pay a lot, and interest rates are still going to remain fairly high. So it's certainly not going to be a wave of relief and to start spending or a reason to take out credit because interest rates will remain quite high. It's just that little edge that will be taken off, hopefully by the Reserve Bank on Thursday.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. Lizette Aysel-Diskepa, who is Chief Economist at the Bureau for Economic Research. I don't know why all this talk about credit cards has got me thinking about that old Tebe and Boomshaka song. Sisokola song. Credit cards. This is the morning brief on SAFM.
Hey, you know, Ntwana, if I could, I'd fly to Dubai.
Here we go again.
First class, Exeni. Ngithi shwe. Get myself a V12 Beast and a mansion with Instagram-worthy views.
You don't even have Instagram.
Imagine seeing the city skyline from my bedroom, watching MasterChef SA while I have my very own MasterChef in my kitchen. Forget the queues at the cinema. I'd have one in my crib, Joe. I'm talking 7.1 surround sound and a 120-inch 8K TV whilst I'm sipping on some grapes. I'm talking luxury, Ntwana. What do you know about that? Let me school you, bro. Tune into Dubai, Buying the Dream, Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. on S3, and channel your inner luxury. Only on S3. Open up.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
It's good to have you with us on this Wednesday edition of the Morning Brief. Let's lead the conversation together then. Let's talk to Churchill, who is out in Mthatha. Churchill, good morning. You want to talk to me about the National Student Financial Aid Scheme?
Yes, my brother. Look, man, this is a thorny issue that needs serious attention. Especially, I'm making a call because, in my view, it was poorly managed in the previous administration. Now it's the GNU. Thulas, do you know that there are students who were dropped by NSFAS last year? A number of them. Now, such students had to come back home, and these students, because they felt that they were eligible for funding. Now, they still submitted same documents because they're craving, they are hungry for education. But this time around, NSFAS says that they qualify. Now, the problem that we're having now is some of these students, they're still being pursued legally. They are being harassed by calls by the previous institutions or the same institutions that they were studying at, and they're owing. And now this could impact negatively on the academic performance. I don't know who's supposed to talk to who here.
Yeah.
Because they have never been exposed to this situation.
Yeah. No, it must
and
be
it goes back to the issue of poor management.
So poor management of these processes has direct consequences and lived consequences.
Absolutely.
As you outlined there.
And if they are dropped by NSFAS, I mean, if they don't perform well academically, they're going to be dropped by NSFAS. What's going to be happening?
Yeah, that's another important element. Churchill, I've got to thank you for your time. The academic performance that Churchill talks to is also important once you've managed to get onto the NSFAS system because, of course, it is resources that are shared by many, many South Africans. And, of course, there's always that focus on ensuring that once you are in, you perform and achieve your academic goals. Mboneni is in Ennerdale. And Mboneni, you want to talk to us about restaurants. Good morning to you. Mboneni?
Yes.
your listeners too. And indeed, you have said it now. We are enjoying you. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I've got only a few things to say here with some of the institutions in South Africa that are actually using foreign nationals and some that are undocumented. I've got actually evidence on that. And I would love you to call again that lady that are they indeed looking at the South African institution about these foreigners that are all over in the restaurant, in the universities. And the other point I want to make as well is about the Basic Education Amendment Act, which of course you had Professor Bruce Flesch from the University of the Witwatersrand in the West College, to call him again to come and unpack for the fact that the president has signed, but has suspended some of the act like Clause 4 and I think even Clause 8, and they will also have Clause 5.
Yes.
Because fundamentally, we have seen numerous things that the DA are denying, because a special Clause 4 is about the language. We recall that AfriForum is also requesting the Accord of Afrikaner. So those schools, like, for example, I'll give one of the schools, I'm not scared to mention it, Help we only have 2 blacks, and the language is Afrikaans. So please call him again, and he must unpack that. And lastly, allow me just 3 seconds about the issue of NEFSA. I heard yesterday you have a very good conversation with one of the staff from NEFSA. Ask them why they took away NEFSAs from universities, because Thulasizwe speak, I work in one of the universities in Gauteng. They've taken NEFSAs away, and this was the reason why former Minister of Education, Blade Zimande, had an opportunity to play any significant role to distribute the money wherever they've done so. So please also try to call them and do so.
Absolutely. Thank you for those suggestions, conversations that you are saying we need to follow through and take forward based on what we've had so far. That is Mboneni out in Enade. Let's talk to Wellington, who is in Polokwane. And Wellington, you want to talk to me about the dropout rates. Good morning to you.
For taking my call. It's my first time, by the way.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. A quick one. Your interview with Elijah Mhlanga, I think, and also the other gentleman who did the research, Denver. I think that gentleman's research is spot on. It's like we are forcing all our children to do matric, when not every single one of our children need to do matric. That is why they begin when they have to choose the subject. Not everyone has got that capacity to be able to can continue with how our education system is structured. But if we create a system which is able to allow them from when they're supposed to be doing that grade 10, then let them go to the Tibet colleges and all of those other places where they will learn a skill. That is why in our country we've got fewer people who have got skills and a lot of people who have got matric, yet they don't know what to do with that matric. And many of them even go to tertiary institutions. They still drop out there because they are not designed for that. Not everyone, even who passes matric, should actually be going to a tertiary institution in that context, in terms of university and so forth. That's why we end up having people who have got midlife crisis and all that later on, because they are not they have not been trained to pull out what is in them. I think that's what the institution does not force everyone to do matric. Yeah.
Great input. I've got to thank you for that, Wellington there in Polokwane, talking about the dropout rates and also emphasizing the point of various exit points within the schooling career path, the schooling path from grade 1 to grade 12 that is able to channel people to artisanal skills and skills that are needed by the economy. Of course, the other element of it is that you've got to ensure that those colleges are of that standard and caliber, and the skills that they produce are able to be absorbed by the economy and its needs. That brings us to 8:30. Let's check in with Mudubi Makhalemele with the latest news headlines.
Thank you very much, Brother Thulas, and a very good morning. In your headlines at 8:30, the DA says plans are in place for its National Day of Action, which will be held across all 9 provinces today. It is against Eskom's proposed 36% electricity tariff hike. It's emerged that about 500,000, or more than 70% of social media posts about the late former Minister Pravin Gordhan are negative, and 3 firefighters have died in Portugal's central Coimbra region after flames trapped their vehicle. I'll be back with the full news update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy delays out of Pietermaritzburg on your way to Durban this morning, and it's likely that there will be for some time. It's a fatal crash, a taxi colliding at Ashburton with a bucky and then going down the embankment. That's resulted in fatalities. Authorities and activity will be present for some time this morning, and the traffic will remain heavy. It looks to me, from what I'm seeing, that trucks are being stacked south of Pietermaritzburg, and motor vehicles are being sort of allowed one at a time past the scene, using a part of the verge on the right. So you are touching a bit of dirt as you go past the sea, but it's a big backlog right back to sort of Ortman Road territory. The R103, understandably, the local alternative out of Pietermaritzburg down through Polly Shorts is very heavily congested as well. If you've got to get from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, give yourself a ton of time to get through. It'll take forever on the N3, and you will sit in some congestion on that R103 as well. Midrand, there's a collision just slowing traffic approaching New Road. That's on your way to Pretoria this morning. The Mike 1 is still heavy. Boyson's up to Empire Road. Behind that, the M2's really slow today, coming through from Benrose in towards the Crown interchange area as well. Cape Town, all those crash scenes at Brackenfell, Belleville on the N1 inbound, they've finally been cleared, but it's released a big backlog of traffic all at the same time. So Plattercliff Hill right through to the elevated freeway in the city centre's heavy. And the M5, that is worth a special mention this morning. It is still jam-packed from Ottery all the way through towards the N2 for return to Hospital Ben. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
And Zai, it's Aidan Makram to the fore as Protea Fire looks to burn in Sharjah.
Oh, yeah, they're going to be turning up the heat, definitely. Yeah. And Aidan Markram going to hit the ground running. He is the stand-in captain because of the injured captain Themba Bavuma. And, first ODI against Afghanistan. And Markram, of course, speaking confidently in a press conference, expressing the team's ambition to grow and secure victories as they continue their preparations for upcoming international competitions. With the squad focused and ready, the Proteas will look to build momentum as they take on a determined Afghanistan side. Markram emphasizing the importance of consistency and teamwork in their pursuit of success.
We feel like we're in a good space as a team. I don't think we have to repeat ourselves in saying we're a team that's growing at the moment and exposing guys to the next level, which is fantastic. So that's where we're at the moment, but the feeling I get amongst the team is that everyone's in a really good place, and really excited about the series that's ahead for us, not just this ODI series, but we have one soon against Ireland as well. So a nice little period for us to play one-day cricket building up to Champions Trophy next year. So ultimately we had to grow the squad, grow players, but still having said that, we're still here to win games, cricket for South Africa against a tough opposition in their own conditions.
The first ball being bowled at 2 p.m. today. Now, rugby, big changes in store for the Springboks ahead of their final rugby championship test against Argentina. Rising star Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu has been sidelined for at least 4 weeks, and that's due to knee injury, a decision made after he played through injury in previous matches. Meanwhile, Captain Siya Kolisi will step into a coaching role for the team, joining Rassie Erasmus in the coach's box. Kolisi, who has been dealing with a facial fracture, will help guide the team off the field while waiting for his injury to heal. Soccer action. Mamelodi Sundowns triumphed in a one-sided Shwane derby last night, defeating SuperSport United 2-0 at Loftus Versfeld Stadium. In the meantime, Magesi coach Clinton Larson believes his side should take the challenge of competing in the Betway Premiership in their stride as the Limpopo-based outfit prepare to do battle with Sekhukhune United at the Peter Mokaba Stadium this evening. 7:30 p.m. is the kickoff. And tennis excitement is building in Berlin as tennis legend Roger Federer arrived ahead of the Laver Cup. Federer, who retired at this event in 2022, will be an active participant in the competition and is looking forward to taking on the likes of Team World, who will play Team Europe. Now, his presence brings even more prestige to the Lever Cup tournament, and it is Federer who will be against captain Bjorn Borg. Bjorn Borg will be stepping down from this edition with Team Europe. There's even speculation that Federer might dust off his racket and make a surprise appearance on the court. Here's Federer and what he had to say about returning to the Lever Cup.
Love to see the progression of the Labour Cup. Obviously, we tried out quite a few things, and I think now we're in a very solid place. The people, the organisers, they know what they need to focus on. And from what I heard already, like they're very easy and good to work with, which I expected, because all the tournaments that I used to play over here in Germany, they were always rock solid. They worked very well. So it's nice to see, and of course I'm very proud. I'm very grateful and thankful to the team that makes it all happen.
And that's the wrap of your sport on the morning brief. We'll bring you more sport on SAFM around 12:30 with John Henniker. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Yeah, and Dowling, the memes remain unforgettable when the two-port retirement system was about to come in. I remember the videos talking about the third port being the taxman's port.
Yes.
And government is defending the decision, the policies around tax on the two-port withdrawals.
That's right, Thulas. Now, there have been calls by unions and members of parliament, with some slamming the tax being charged on two-part withdrawals. Kasatu in particular raised concerns expressing dissatisfaction with the government's decision to add withdrawals from two-part retirement system to taxable income. It says this move could potentially push taxpayers into a higher tax bracket. Now, some members of the Finance Standing Committee also expressed concerns about the 2024 draft tax bills. EFF MP Sinawo Tambo criticized the two-part system, calling it a massive revenue collection measure that fails to benefit workers as intended. Now, just to recap on those tax implications, when withdrawing from the two-part retirement system, the first 25,000 Rand is tax-free. Amounts between 25,001 to 50,000 are taxed at 18%, and amounts above 50,000 are taxed at 24 to 40%, depending on the total amount. Additionally, withdrawals are added to your taxable income, potentially pushing you up into a higher tax bracket, and that's been the main concern here. Treasury, in the meantime, defending its stance. In the 2024 budget, there were estimates that government will get an additional 5 billion Rand in tax revenue from the system. Treasury's Chris Axelson considers this estimate conservative. Axelson explained that taxes on withdrawals will be progressive, with no tax owed if combined income and withdrawals are below 95,750. However, high income earners will face higher taxes on withdrawals, serving as a disincentive. The system aims to benefit lower income individuals while ensuring tax fairness.
Yeah, what with all the administrators, they were talking well over 1 billion, the pension fund administrators. Almost each one of them was talking well over 1 billion within a week or so of the system kicking in. Talk to me about consumer confidence. You're saying that it's at a 5-year high.
So what we're seeing here is that local consumers are becoming a bit more confident about their financial situations. In the third quarter, the Consumer Morale Index conducted by FNB and the Bureau of Economic Research improved from -10 to -5 points. This is the second consecutive 5-point increase, and the reading is at its highest since 2019. The reading is still in negative territory, though, suggesting that there are some risks still at play and issues weighing on the local consumer. Risks aside, though, confidence in this quarter was mainly boosted by the usuals, of course, the formation of the Government of National Unity, the absence of load shedding, a stronger Rand exchange rate, fuel price declines, a deceleration in inflation, and high expectations of interest rate cuts come this month as well as in November. Now, in the previous quarter, morale was largely fueled by an improvement in the economic outlook. driven by the end of load shedding. In contrast, the third quarter increase was driven by a substantial boost in household financial outlook. And the improvement in sentiment was mostly among high-income households earning more than 20,000 Rand a month. We did see a further uptick for middle-income households as well, but confidence of low-income households earning less than 5,000 Rand a month slipped back slightly in the third quarter.
Lastly then, Dowling, just a preview of the kind of trading day we are looking at in local markets, but also a recap of Asia and US futures.
It's a D-day for the Fed, Thulas, and traders have been quite cautious awaiting that big rates move. And so investors anticipate choppy trade with the JSE poised to start the day on a mixed note. The Rand, in the meantime, expected to trade in a tight range as sentiment remains mixed. Traders will be getting local consumer inflation data today, as well as updates from construction firm Raubex and Grindrod. On the international front, U.S. futures are just above the flat line. Traders there digesting better than expected retail sales numbers, suggesting that economy is still faring well. Moving over to Asia markets, they're making a turn, trading mostly in the green and on track to end today's trading session in positive territory.
All right, thank you for today, Ndawling. Have yourself a great day. Ndawling Lechela there. She's been watching all things to do with the economy, business, as well as your markets throughout the day here, throughout this morning here on the Morning Brief.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
All right, let me take this call from Nzikana out in Durban. And Nzikana, you want to talk to me about Pravin Gordhan, the late former minister. I do apologize for keeping you holding for this long, but what do you want to say about Pravin Gordhan?
Good morning, Mr. Simelane. Thank you very much. Actually, I want to commend Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast and Shannon Bolton from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation for the balanced analysis they gave on Bongo Zwane's program on Sunday. It was so balanced that it made me proud to be a black person, to listen to two black philosophers talking about such a great man as Pravin Gordhan. And it then made me hopeful, Mr. Simelane, that there is hope for us, black people, because we are currently losing black greats. Not so long ago, we lost Professor Jesla Mushenkondo, and now we are losing Pravin Gordhan. So listening to the balanced analysis by these two black philosophers gave me so much hope that these two greats who have now passed on are going to be replaced by these upcoming black philosophers. That is all that I wanted to say, Mr. Simelane.
All right, I've got to thank you. That's a great input that you are making there, Nzikana out in Durban, talking about Pravin Gordhan, but more importantly, making it about thought leadership, black thought leadership, for that matter. I've got to thank you for that call.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's go to this now. The South African Guild of Actors is set to host an anti-racism conference in Cape Town next week to address what it refers to as systematic racism in the Western Cape's entertainment industry. The Guild of Actors will host industry professionals to discuss racism and its impact on the arts. The Guild says racism continues unabated due to the unregulated nature of the entertainment industry. For more now, I'm joined on the line by the chairperson of the South African Guild of Actors. That's the veteran actor, Jack Devnaren. Jack, good morning. I've got to thank you for your time. It's been a while. This suggests you holding this conference suggests that, as you say, there's systematic racism that you've identified in the Western Cape. What has informed that view that racism in the industry in the Western Cape is systematic?
Emanates from the reports that we've been getting from performers, from technical crew, and from other freelancers working in the creative industry. And it seems that there are systems in place that include some kind of collusion between broadcasters, production companies, and various service providers who provide the work on set for the production companies. And it seems that there are elements within each of these groups that understand each other very well when they're trying to make sure that job protection is based on your skin color, and access to work is based on your skin color, and certain grades of pay are accessible only according to a certain skin color. So this is what we've noticed according to reports, and we've interrogated this before we made the decision to host a conference. Obviously, we needed to understand the nature of the problem and to see also whether people were prepared to speak out, because you can imagine, Thulasizwe, people are terrified of losing their jobs if they speak out, because this traditionally is what has been happening.
I don't imagine, Jack, that the manifestations of what you are calling collusion between broadcasters, production companies, and service providers within the value chain is overt. I imagine that it is almost subtle, is it?
Yes, it is. And this is why we mentioned, and I think you read it in the introduction as well, that this is an unregulated sector. So if you have to work within the corporate or the retail sector, you'll find that there are statutes that you can rely on. You can actually go to an HR office and say, there's been sexual intimidation, there's been harassment, abuse, exploitation, racism, whatever it might be. And you'll find that there are policies in place. There are regulations in place that protect your workplace rights. Now, in South Africa, we are completely different from the rest of the world in a very unsavory way, in that we don't have regulations to protect us. We are not covered by any labor laws whatsoever. And that means you can have racists and bigots walking around in clear sight. And it means that they're not subject to those same statutes. It means that they cannot be, there's no recourse then. All they would do is simply say, well, because you're a freelancer and now you're complaining, we're simply going to cancel your contract and you'll have no further recourse. And that's what's been happening. And that's why the system is a self-perpetuating system of racist abuse, and we want to call it out.
So then in that context, how important is it then that the Performers Protection Amendment Bill, which sits on the desk of the President awaiting his signature, how important is it that it suffers the same fate, if I can speak like that, as the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, as it happened last week on Friday, that he signs it?
Well, it is a separate discussion, Thulasizwe, simply because the Performers Protection Amendment Bill and the Copyright Bill, which are linked, and it's important to mention that, these deal specifically with actors' royalty rights, the right to create an organization to collect those royalties and to pay them to actors. And it is a form of regulation, but the real regulation that we are mentioning here, and in this context, for the anti-racism conference, has more to do with our labor rights, which we have none of anyway. So we are absolutely hoping that the president is going to sign it, although we understand that the president is under ANC orders not to sign the bills, which is also a bizarre turn of events, but that's a separate discussion. What we are concerned about is appealing to the Department of Employment and Labor, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and obviously Sports, Arts and Culture, to say our industry as a creative industry cannot continue as long as we are unregulated. Nowhere in the world do you find an unregulated creative sector.
Yeah, and have you had the opportunity to engage with some of those ministers, particularly the ever-energetic Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, I suppose, to try and have in him and other ministers you mentioned a champion for the cause?
Yes. The hard part, Thulasizwe, is to try to describe what this regulation can look like, because Minister McKenzie is looking at the possibility of replicating the confederation system that exists in the sports sector and bringing that into the arts and culture sector, which from Saga's point of view seems unworkable. We are yet to understand how he's going to try and create those systems and how they might work, because you'd appreciate that while hockey, swimming, tennis and soccer are very different sports, you're not going to find similar distinctions in the creative sector in order to create and partition those different areas of work. So, for example, as an actor, I might be able to work in live theater, in an animated feature, as well as film and television. So how then do you separate us according to those lines? But the important point is that they are open to engagement. On a political level, there is some energy. And I think they're starting to see the value of our sector and how and why it must be regulated.
Good to hear. Thank you for that. Jack Devnarain, who is chairperson of the SA Guild of Actors, talking to us there about an anti-racism conference that they will be hosting in Cape Town next week.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Top story now is the major delays coming out of Pietermaritzburg down to Durban. The queue just continues to grow. There is a whole pile of trucks that are unable to clear the scene. Motorists seem to be filtering through sort of on the dirt on the right lane, but net result is this queue right back through to sort of New England and Ortman Road, and not too far down the road from sort of Chotamotala. I think if you're at Chotamotala, you look ahead, you'll probably see the backlog of traffic. So very, very substantial major delays coming out of Pietermaritzburg down to Ashburton on your way to Durban, and given the fact that it is a fatal crash, there will be some activity around the scene for some hours still to come this morning. The alternative route, as you can imagine, the Polly Shorts option between Pietermaritzburg and Ashburton is absolutely jam-packed as well. Just staying in KZN, the N2 still under pressure at this hour from the M7 up towards Westwood Mall roadworks, and then more delays between Kwamashu and Gateway through that set of roadworks as well. Joburg still fairly busy at this hour. The Mike 1 from the Buccleuch interchange down towards Marlborough Drive on your way to Sandton, very heavy. Mike 1 North, M2 West into Crown, absolutely jam-packed, and the N1 getting up through towards Pretoria, a crash by New Road. All lanes open there, but it's pretty slow from as far back as Allendale Road. Cape Town's been a busy Wednesday with heavy traffic on the N1 inbound, still queuing from sort of Plattercliff territory all the way through to the elevated freeway. The N2's at Langa going inbound to Hospital Bend, and the N2 out of town. Looks like there might have been another incident around the airport just after Robert Sobukwe. As you approach the airport exit, all of a sudden you come to a bit of a halt in that traffic. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
S3. And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said, "Grrr."
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, "Baye."
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
This September, S3 brings you thought-provoking nature dockies that will change the way in which you view the world. Temperature Rising tells the story of three activists as they grapple with what thinking globally and acting locally means as they fight the barriers to climate action. Airs Sunday the 8th of September. Channel your inner activist with our selection of premium dockies Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
S3.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
Good morning, Tulas and the SFM listeners. You see, Tulas, this thing, if you remember the issue of banning of trucks, this issue doesn't end in restaurant only, transport sector. And you know what, Tulas, I agree with those guys who formed the Shesha, and I agree with them 100% when they say platforms like Bolt and Uber must leave this country. They are exploiting us. It extends also to them. It also extends for something that people didn't know. If you see this app which is running, delivering food, Mr. T, it's same thing. People are being exploited center and right, and the Department of Labor is not doing anything. Thanks.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Labor inspectors in our country, they live on kickbacks. That's why they are not doing their work. They survive on kickbacks from employers. Last time I requested them to check labor conditions on the farm around Memel. That made things worse for the workers, because these guys are being given money and sheep by the farmers. So there's nothing you can expect from them. Thank you. I'm Bafana in Memel.
Thulasizwe, my take on the education is if graduates struggle to find jobs after graduating, or if they struggle even to create a job because of finances, then why must we complete matric? Because at the end of the day, we're going to complete matric and then be students at home doing nothing or looking for a job, then we can't find. So why the education is like that now? Why the government is allowing people to be non-thinkers? So the education system is wrong in itself. The design thereof, it is wrong.
Yeah, thank you for those. A lot of these issues that we have raised today clearly exercising your mind, and rightly so, as a concerned and engaged citizen. Bafana, I want to talk to what you are talking about. It's quite disheartening to hear the allegation you make that some labor inspectors live on kickbacks from employers, such that even when issues are raised and flagged, actually there's no action that will be coming through. And I hear you saying that in as far as farms in Memel are concerned, actually you reporting that they should be attended to actually led to the situation being worse for those workers. And so that's something to be taken up. And I don't believe that it's out of the realm of what's possible given the manifestations of corruption in our society in the many, many sectors. Certainly something for us to take forward with the Department of Employment and Labor. The burning of trucks, and I want to talk to the suggestion that people, that Bolt and Uber must leave the country. My take would be to say, why not plug the gap around the exploitation of people that you raise, instead of taking drastic decisions that say certain companies must leave the country, unless, of course, they've violated the laws of the country such that it has become untenable for them to continue to be corporate citizens. I still believe that more action is needed on the side of the law and policy enforcers on our country. It's not something that's impossible. Other countries are able to enforce their rules and policies. Why can't we? Let me end today with a call from David out in Pietermaritzburg. And David, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about racism?
Yeah, in Cape Town specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's clear that racism in Cape Town is promoted and also supported, because it puts white people on the pedestal and also gives them power over other racial groups. What I would like to suggest is that for us black people, I think we need to have the NGO that you're going to fund, like the AfriForum, that is going to focus on exposing all these racism issues that are happening mostly in schools, because you can see that there's a lot of racism in schools. And mind you, I feel sorry for the lower grade pupils who can't report these things when they happen, who can't even notice that this is racism, because we only hear about the issues of racism reported in high schools, And if you look at Cape Town, I was surprised during the political debates that were happening in various halls that out of about, I think, 60-something or 70 senior positions in Cape Town, only 2 black people are appointed in those senior positions. Most of them are occupied by white people. So you can tell that there's a lot of racism in Cape Town. It's promoted by the DA and also supported. Thank you.
All right, I've got to leave it there. And I don't know, I'm not sure about the allegation you then make. I hear and I take your point fully. I just don't know about attributing it to the DA in particular. But there is certainly a conversation to be had about whether or not there's a gulf between what the Constitution promises and the lived realities of people, including people in the Western Cape. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. Thank you so much for joining me, and thanks to the team that put it all together. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
The top stories at 9 o'clock, the DA to protest against Eskom's planned tariff hike and mostly negative social media posts about Gordhan. A very good morning to you. The DA says plans are in place for its National Day of Action, which will be held across all 9 provinces today. It is against Eskom's proposed 36% electricity tariff hike. The increase, which the energy regulator NERSA is yet to approve, will take effect from the 1st of April next year. Civil rights organizations are opposed to the increase, saying it will add to the financial burden that South Africans are already suffering. The DA's Kevin Milam says there's no justification for the tariff hike.
We want South Africans to make their voices heard. We want NERSA to hear the impact that it's having on South Africans. We want them to see that this is unaffordable and we cannot continue this way. Tomorrow we have a parliamentary debate. We've got a massive petition that is online, has already received some 89,000 signatures and thousands more on hard copy versions across the length and breadth of South Africa. That's all going to NERSA. And then NERSA has a public participation process, and we want to urge every single South African to participate in that public participation process.
About 500,000 or more than 70% of social media posts about